Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Monday and Aquarius Rising Africa. And I know we were supposed to have the show last night or yesterday morning for you guys. But as you know, life in Africa can sometimes get a little bit tough with power and stuff. Although I have to tell you, it wasn't a power outage last night, but I did have power issues. So yeah, we are. Apparently we're fine and we're good to go today. But anyway, before we get going, I just want to give a beautiful and very grateful shout out to our amazing sponsor, Spooky 2, the creators of Home Rife Machine. And I have to tell you, I'm super excited because my Hiwi, I'm not quite sure, Hiwi, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, just arrived today. So I'm going to be doing a very cool unboxing very soon. But really, really happy to have you guys, Spooky 2, as our sponsor. This is the future of medicine. More and more we're seeing the results with this incredible home frequency, home rife machines. And I do know that, it really involves detoxing and then refilling, if you will, your body with amazing frequencies that are really created from nature, and it pretty much teaches your body how to reuse your own energy again. So before we go ahead with Caleb, and I know you guys are all waiting for him, we're just going to play our intro, our amazing advert from Spooky 2.
I'm Barry Novis. I live in Australia. I'm a huge fan of Spooky 2. Here is my story. I've been a professional artist for 20 years. Well, I learned via cystoscopy in early 2016 that I had bladder cancer. I had to really think things through. I knew I didn't want chemo or radiation or surgery. So I started researching alternatives in the hope of finding a non-invasive solution. I have lovely friends, a wonderful girlfriend, Shari, and a great family. 3 sons, a daughter, and 3 grandchildren. In other words, I have a lot to live for, and I didn't want to risk making things worse for them or for me. My status as an artist led me to collect a lot of Facebook friends over the years, and I regularly post images of my paintings and my life here in Australia. When I learned I had cancer, I began posting about alternatives, which prompted a Facebook friend to tell me about Royal Rife and Spooky 2. We met, he showed me his one generator. I did more research and made the choice to try Spooky 2. It is probably the smartest decision I've ever made in my life. It has actually saved my life. 6 months after my diagnosis in September 2016, we received our first Spooky 2 order. Spooky Centroid Plasma and 4 XM generators. And we downloaded the software, which by the way is provided free of charge. How amazing is that? Thank you to my girlfriend Shari and all the amazing people responsible for Spooky 2. This is an organization that keeps giving and giving, and we will be eternally grateful for what they have done and continue to do. Cheers and best of health.
Best of health indeed. An amazing product. I work with the little ones. My mom is working with the little ones. She's sadly fractured her wrist, and Spooky 2 is the little tiny one. Is really doing a great job with her, so I can highly recommend that. So anyone wants to purchase your home rife machine, you're welcome to drop my name as often as you like to get your 5% discount on the machine. So yay, Caleb, where are you? Hello, Morna. Hello, Caleb. And I just want, before we begin, Caleb, if you can just open for us in prayer, please.
Sure. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for another chance to share some information, another chance to expose some truths, Just ask that you protect us. You keep your hand on us. Thank you for your provision. Thank you for everything that you do and who you are. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Caleb, before we start, there's just a comment I'd like to respond to, please. Morna, if you can just pop it up. All right. When we got onto the show today, I saw this comment from Understanding Conspiracy. I will be watching. I reserve judgment until I hear what is said in the show, but I hope you do not butcher my life's work here with no credit given. Okay, I would just like to start off by telling you that there was no way anyone was going to be butchering your life's work on this show. In fact, what Caleb was going to do was, and still is, by the way, is give your channel a credit because he actually respects the work you've done. I've not watched your channel, I have to be honest, but I think what we're doing here, Caleb has personal experience of these things. So he's coming from the inside out, and I'm sure you could probably learn a thing or two from him. We don't make it our business to steal anyone's work or use it without giving credit. So, but what he is and what he has said to me actually off air is that you've done quite a bit of research, and what he wanted to do was, in fact, refer people to your channel because of the research that you've done. Okay, so I think we just need to calm down a little bit before we jump to any conclusions. Caleb is coming from a place where he himself has personal experience of these clowns and Rephaim. I don't even know how to pronounce the word. Okay, so just to set that clear and just to set that record straight, but I'm glad to know that you're watching, because I think all of us that are actually in this on this journey together could benefit from each other, working together, exposing these atrocities that have been going on since forever. And for those of you who've been watching Caleb now for, I think it's maybe 6 weeks you've been on, you've exposed some truths that we've only ever heard about. I don't know mostly of what people, the things you talk about. And I know, like with Jessie Czebotar on our channel as well, who's been trained as the Queen Mother of Darkness as a child. She's been talking to us about these things for a very long time. Caleb, you are one that's experienced these things from every angle, and one of the very, very few people that has actually been in the thick of it, come out and living to tell the story. It is a minefield out there, and I'm glad that we can set the record straight for you. So, and I will just say that, and I'm sure Caleb will say that too, Understanding Conspiracy, that your channel is well researched, but Caleb is coming from personal experience rather than research. Okay, so let's just understand that. Cool, Caleb. Thank you. I'm very glad to have you here. And I know this is a topic we've been talking, well, kind of like there's been, a lot of speculation around that, about what these clowns are. For me, they've always creeped the heck out of me. So, Caleb, over to you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story.
I always think of the song "Stuck in the Middle with You." The clowns to the left of me and jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. And that makes me think of that every time I say the word clown. So
exactly. I mean, I know when we were actually putting together some stuff for the channel, Morna came up with some horrific images. I don't know. Do you want us to show some of the images, or how do you want to do? Do you want to talk about your experience?
Let's start talking
okay, cool.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Then I'm going to hand over to you, and you can just share with us your experience of these clowns.
Well, as was previously mentioned about myself, I'm half German, half Native American. And in both cultures, there's a strong history about clowns. This isn't my attempt to deep dive into the history of them or any of the esoteric knowledge that there is about clowns, but it is an attempt to give my experience with them. I was a Freemason, and my family's been involved with Freemasonry and the shrine for a long time. Every shrine I've ever seen always has a circus. Every circus always has clowns. And so they used to come to my dad's place and play their band music and drive their little cars up and down the street. And in my opinion, just in general, be creepy. So as a young boy, I got to see that quite often. As a Native American, there's a lot of traditions in my tribe where they're not venerated. People don't care for clowns. In fact, they often warn you to stay the heck away from clowns. Like, you don't see too many natives going to circuses. They don't like the clowns. Some of the connotations that are involved in that. And it does go pretty deep. And that's where I refer to Understanding Conspiracy about that, because he does a pretty good job of exposing that truth, or the dark side of the clowning world. There's a lot of references to Nephilim, Rephaim, or demons, or whatever you want to call them. And that's where my experience personally with these comes in at some point. So now we just got done talking about crystals not too long ago, mentioning or talking a bit about crystals. And that interaction with crystals, that you're using that type of magic, if you want to call magic that, in the arcane, that's where we sourced a lot of our powers, from that side of the spiritual spectrum, if you want to call it that. I call it chaos. I'm sure by now everybody's seen the so-called glitch videos where you see black and white stripes on somebody's face or on the background or something like that. And of course, in the Masonic temples, you see the black and white checkered floor. From what I understood, that was to represent the realm called chaos or oblivion, where they're not in heaven, they're not here. They're kept aside or apart from us, at least, the ones that have died. I'm talking about the ones that have died in the flood, because they're half angelic, so they don't die like we do, and their spirit does not go back to God. It goes to chaos. The space between the spaces would be a good way to put it. So,
is that? I want to just ask you about the chaos. You in one of your previous interviews, you spoke about Gleitner, right? And the Gleitner, and you were talking about the souls that are in Gleitner that pretty much get matched up to those Cabbage Patch Kids, or the created kids, if you will. Are we talking? Is this a similar thing, that the realm of chaos are we talking about the same thing here?
Some would describe it as being where Abraham's bosom was found at one point, before that got emptied out after Jesus arrived. Some people would say that it's its own entity. I mean, there's a lot of different things about it. Again, I'm not trying to go into a historical record of it, but I am going to say the times that I got to go there, it was definitely a scary and terrifying place, because it's hard. It was hard to really to describe it. It was like being in a place where there's an overcast sky, lots of lightning coming down. It was always dark, like dusk. That's what I saw, and I saw what I know to be Rephaim, or shades. I didn't call them Rephaim then. I called them shades. They had individual names. Right. Most of them were trying to get out of that place. So they would try to entice or cajole you or whatever else to try to get you to emplace them into whatever vessel that you could emplace them into. They would vie for that attention. And the strangest part about it was There were a few of them that didn't even know that they were dead. They were just going on with what they were doing in life. It was actually really sad to see it.
Wow. Just on that note, sorry to chime in, and I don't mean to interrupt you there, but that for me is very, very interesting, because I have often, I mean, I have the gift of being able to see beyond the physical as well. And there have certainly been times where I have seen spirits that have not crossed over, but they don't seem particularly unhappy. I mean, there was one time I remember, I was in a house, and many years before that, the grandfather, or the great-grandfather, actually died he fell asleep in the chair, and while he was asleep, he died. And he just remained there. And he wasn't angry, he just thought he was alive, right? And I also know somehow that when these people don't cross over, or when these spirits rather don't cross over, they remain there, but can get angry because they think they're alive. And then when no one can see them anymore, then they start wreaking havoc in the house, like throwing things around and breaking things and stuff like that. Are we talking about the same thing here?
From what I could see, yes. It wasn't my point and purpose to be there to see all these things and make a guess about them. But what I got to see, it was the strangest thing in the world to notice these people didn't seem to know that they were dead. And from what I understood, that this was part of an initiation. I didn't just travel down there just because I felt like taking a stroll in the land of the dead. This is an initiation into a master level of incantation and enchantment.
Right. Right. So this is part of your training?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us more about that? Incantation and enchantment. Enchantment, as you say.
Another time I will.
Okay.
I'm trying to make the correlation between the crystals and the crystalline realm and how they resonate, how they interact with each other and what they do. I'm not going to be able to explain all of it, but
yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to give you a detailed history. You'll have to go to Understanding Conspiracies channel to find that depth if you want to hear about it. But from my personal experience, just as growing up as a child, go to gatherings or powwows, and they would call these guys who were dressed funny, painted in black and white, and scary faces, or what some people would say were funny faces. I didn't think they're funny. They're terrifying to me when I was a child. They called them contraries. That's what they called them, was contraries. And that's obviously the English translation from my native tongue. In my native tongue, it means something a little different than that, but that's the closest I could get to explain what they are. And these contraries would go through the gathering, and they would, quote, chase these Rephaim or these spirits away. I'm not sure if they were actually chasing them away or if they're just inviting more of them, but that's what I was given to understand as a child, what that was about. I always grew up with those stories all the time and every other thing. And then by the time I hit the system and I was in this Scotch family, we were heavily involved in the Scottish Rite Freemasonry and the shrine. Like I said, we got to see clowns all the time. There's always references to clowns inside the house, which just bothered me to give me nightmares some nights. So the connection with crystals of the crystalline realm, think of the two words, crystals and crystalline realm, and how they interact, how they're able to come here, and people call them demons these days. That's a real super general term. I always call them Rephaim. So anyway, yeah, that's trying to make a link here, and I feel like I'm kind of failing at it.
I think you're doing a great job. Thank you. I totally get that. Can you explain to me or to us Rephaim?
Again, it's dead Nephilim that died in the flood, from what I can gather.
Right.
So obviously they can die because they're half humans, half human, half angelic.
Right.
Wow.
I'm wondering, Morna, we have some of those pictures there. If you could, I mean, I don't know, we've put up quite a few pictures. I'm not sure, Caleb, if you've got something just to add to just some of the pictures that we've got here, that you could maybe offer some explanation.
There's a whole entire history that is put up on that other channel that talks about this kind of thing. I know everybody's seen clowns before and what they look like and how they feel about them. Almost universally, amongst at least the people that I know, everybody does not like clowns. They don't think they're funny. They don't think they're cute. Nothing. They're always really creepy. They're always around kids. Why are they always around kids? You have to ask, you know.
Right. Absolutely.
Why do they have Shriners with children's hospitals? You don't see them with Shriners with adult hospitals. You see it with children's hospitals. Obviously, they try to make it out like a charity kind of thing, but I think it runs a little deeper than that, to be honest with you, from what I saw or what I got to see. I haven't been into the Masonic Temple many times, or the lodge, I guess you want to call it that, not a temple. It's basically a temple. There's a lot of reference to these beings in kind of a sideways manner. So we're going to have to kind of go back to referring about crystals and how they work. I know that was kind of a loose end that I never really tied up. It's not going to get tied up on this either, but we can at least talk about it.
Yeah.
One of the chat members talked about cutting these crystals into gems, or cutting in specific ways and specific patterns to reflect or refract and capture the life or the soul. And that's exactly what I was trying to explain through that whole entire thing. He did a good job of saying that. So I'm not anxious to tell you how that's done, because then I'd be teaching you how to do it. So I'll try to explain it as much as I can. So anyway, I lost my train of thought there.
All good. I'd be very interested to know, when you're talking about the connections from the crystals to the Rephaim or the clowns, that connection, that's where I haven't I haven't gotten that connection. Can you maybe explain that, please?
Well, it became a transferal sort of thing, so that they don't need crystals to do this. They can convince somebody on their own. I mean, you have to agree to something before you do something. Almost every aspect of life, you have to say yes to something or no to something. These things are really good at making you think that what they're saying to you is your own thoughts. Or, I mean, that's one of the inroads that they use. So,
right. So, if you basically, once they've captured the energy or the soul in the crystal, right? Then as you say, you're using that as like a battery, as a power. So you then.
Well, okay. Let me clarify that just before we go a little further with that. They're not capturing a soul to begin with, they're using that crystal as a way to pierce the veil, to go from there to here. It's one of the ways that they use those crystals when they're cut. You can find natural ones that do that, but most often it's cut into a gem. That's why I called it a soul gem.
Right.
Specific cut of a gem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Does make sense. And then when you say, would that gem then be used to penetrate whatever or whoever you needed to, and make that person think that that's their own thoughts? Is that what you're saying?
In a real general way, yes. But it's a way to pierce the veil that they can easily avail themselves to be here.
Right.
You've heard of the most evil man on the planet. I'm not going to say his name, but you know who he is. Starts with an A, it has it ends with a C in his last name. Where they opened a gateway and something came through. How do you think they opened the gateway? They didn't just go alakazam and swing a wand at the wall and all of a sudden it appeared. There was a lot of ritual involved with that. A lot of crystals, a lot of soul gems, a lot of things that powered on our side of the veil to open that rift. And they use those gems to do that. That was part of it.
Wow, incredible. So it's really okay, so I would say then with soul gems as well as sound, right? Because we understand sound, music, and crystals are absolutely going hand in hand. So when we're talking about opening up these huge gates, these spiritual gates, that's what they're doing.
The guy's first name was Alistair. I'm sure everybody knows who that is.
Mr. C, Mr. Crowley. Yeah. Right, I get that. So wow, so it's not just with sound, because we've kind of, and sex magic as well. We often told it sex magic, as well as sound, right? And now it's the crystal power as well. Is there anything else we're missing out on here?
At some point, we're going to have to talk about sex magic, not as a sexual education, but how they use it. That's a subject for a different show. But somebody mentioned, Jay mentioned talking about the crystal of the TV and that. I can answer that question if you want to put it up.
Yeah, let me just actually put that up there so we can check that out. Yeah.
Okay, so when they manufacture these TVs, it's a liquid crystal display. It's a kind of a dimorphous material that they run electrical charge to create these images and colors and whatnot that move around. But it's a crystal. It's still a crystal. So I also saw somebody else call it a black mirror, which is kind of the same thing. But they have such high refresh rates now that I don't think the ones who are running the show can hide their minions that they put up on camera. They're puppets. I'm sure we've all seen those videos by now. At least somewhere. We've seen these people change into different things, or they have a lizard eyes, or they have black and white stripes appear on them, or they glitch out or something. The refresh rates on these TVs are so high now. We're able to see that now, whereas before, with standard television, it didn't matter because it wasn't high-tech enough. So think about that for a minute.
Exactly. It's interesting that, and so it's not actually any different. It's not like they're coming in more fast and furiously now. It's really just that the technology is that much more advanced, right? So we can see it more easily. Is that what you're saying?
The dissemination of high technology from some of the stuff that I did myself is definitely what helps them out.
Wow.
And it's in every home. It's in everybody's pocket. It's even in your wristwatch. You're walking around covered in crystals all the time, or looking at it, or staring at it, or involved with it somehow. It started with radio. Radio after the first big reconstruction or the mud flood, where we talked about the Cabbage Patch Kids, where they repopulated here and this and that. They started with radio as the very first form of internet, or very first form of mass or public communication. So they want to get themselves out there without, they can't just appear here. There's ways that they have to do it because the veil is in the way. There's also the Nephilim who are still here, the giants, the ones that live underground, that type and sort of thing. And in those years that I practiced, we did have a lot of contact with these beings, both the fallen archons, the Nephilim who are still here, and the Rephaim. In fact, it was the Rephaim who powered a lot of our magic once we opened the gate. That was the sole purpose of using those soul gems with captured souls, was to open those gates, let them through. That was the sole purpose.
And the Rephaim were the souls that were powering the gems. Is that what you're saying?
The souls that were powering the gems are what we took from people here or animals here to open those gates, or to enchant devices, items, to perform rituals to open gates. That's one of the ways we used to do it.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. This is really incredible information. Okay, so once the gates are open to bring in whatever you guys were wanting to bring in, what happens then? How do you close them?
Well, you just brought this being into here where they were trapped in the crystalline realm, or oblivion, or chaos, or gluttony, or whatever you want to call it. The well of souls, whatever. Just depends on who you're looking at, who you're learning from, what it's called. You brought them here, and they're here now, and they're empowering your magic. That's one of the main ways they do it. They're always looking for a body, is what's happening. So,
how common is this?
Look around you.
How common is this?
Look around you. It's all around you all the time.
I mean, I know it's happening around us, and I know, but we kind of tend to think that it's really just, or tend to believe rather, that it's really just a smaller percentage of what's really happening. But there again, I guess, even if it is a smaller percentage of people that are actively doing this, right? By dumbing down humanity, it's easy for them to achieve their goal. Is that right?
That's right. And look at all the ritualistic holidays that they put out there. Every single one of them was a pagan holiday at one point or another that got painted a glossy white color by the Catholic Church at some point. They integrated that into their so-called belief system so that they didn't lose the following. They just kept the people. Again, dumbed them down, didn't let them learn how to read or write or anything else for the longest time. That's a relatively new phenomenon, is where everybody's educated. Educated in what is the next question, but still, it's an education. And again, I'm only telling you from my experience with this stuff. I couldn't give you the super in-depth anything, but
right. No, I mean, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to see Bell C007, disembodied spirits, right? So I would imagine that's part of the game as well. Yeah.
Right. And with the turmoil caused by the Great Flood and all the other tumultuous events that happened after that, I'm going to put myself out there and say this place is a whole lot older than people think. It's not 6,000 years old. It's way older than that. And so much of the stuff that happened here, I mean, with the Nephilim and how they had what they called the Titans, the really big giants. They all went to war with each other. They all fought against each other. And that was part of the punishment, I think, was they destroyed each other, and those archons had to watch that happen. So I think that's how that worked out.
Wow. That's incredible. I want to just have a look here. I used to have these things. He's bridling the 144 ruling over the angels and us. What is that? The 144 ruling over the angels and us. Is that relative to this year that we're talking about?
144,000.
The last
maybe.
comment.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was going to say that's really the 100. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. So
I find it fascinating that so many people don't think that this place is that old. It's like, you got to be kidding me. They keep finding stuff in strange places that there's no other explanation for it to be there. The way that the pyramids in Egypt are weathered by great expanses of time being underwater at some point, at least part way up. It doesn't happen overnight with some of this stone. Granite, those kinds of stones don't weather that quickly.
I think we've certainly been lied to a lot. There's a lot of information that we still need to learn, and I think things are coming to the fore now. But I think what's really interesting for me as well is exactly the stuff we're talking about. These the fallen ones and what they getting up to, and up to, down to, right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that gets into the subject matter of how they do this. And I'm not really anxious to teach how they did it, so I would feel like I was telling too much about it if I'd said that.
Well, I'm sure we would need a lot more education than to run off and go and do it ourselves now. But it is just interesting to understand, the concept, really, the outline, and why, really why. For us, I think more than anything, it's trying to come to grips with why they're doing this, what we're dealing with, and how do we elevate ourselves out of this.
Well, again, my personal experience with these things wasn't to try to get out of anything. I was trying to get deeper into it. So I was trying to, I don't want to say form pacts or anything, but that's basically what it boiled down to, was making agreements with them in exchange for power. There's different kinds of them. So they're not all just cloven-hooved, pointy-tailed, horn-wearing, devil beard guys that walk around and sell one song. There's a whole bunch of them, a whole wide range of them. Remember, God called them an abomination to the earth. And that's why he caused that flood to happen, why he allowed that to go on. Because they were destructive all the time. They were killing each other off and just being a menace. Lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Again, there's other places you can look to find the pointers to those kinds of stories. I'm just trying to tell you my own personal experience with them. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's what's important.
It was the empowering of that magic that I was after, so that it became real and it became more than just sleight of hand, trinkets and bells and whistles and don't look behind the curtain stuff. This went way beyond that.
Can you elaborate on that? I understand that there's obviously stuff you can't speak about, because I do get that you don't want to expose too much other than what you can. But can you expand on the type of magic, the type of power that these things actually hold, and what was available to you?
Well, I've told you that there's 9 magics that I know of. And if you know anything about the Bible, there's also 9 spiritual gifts that God gives you. So it's a direct convolution of God's gifts to you. So it's kind of an opposite of the negative of the positive. Let's put it that way.
Right.
They even use some of the same language. But somebody asked if the Nephilim or the Rephaim resemble clowns and you enter the spiritual world. Yes, that's definitely one of the things you see. And it is a whole lot scarier than any pictures that you see. A whole lot scarier. And in fact, they quite often attack me through nightmares. And I've told you about some of them, Chantel, but that's how they appear. And it's not like a circus clown that look creepy enough by themselves. They are definitely, for lack of a better term, insane would be what I'd say about them. Insane.
I wonder if Mona, you can maybe put up some of those pictures, because I mean that's okay. That's one.
Right.
I'm interested to know why they would take on the shape of clowns, though, right? What about clowns is so appealing to them? I mean, look at that one with the dog. I mean, wow.
Again, I can't answer the history part of all that stuff. I just know what I saw myself. From what I understand, from what I saw as a child, they were pretty terrifying. They're pretty scary creatures or beings. When you're 7, 8 years old and you see something like that in the dark that's not a man dressed in a painted face, and he looks worse than any of those clowns you just showed, you have to wonder where that does come from. So
yeah, I saw some evil clowns on movies where it's not just paint, it's almost like blood and teeth. It's like the blood comes out of their teeth and stuff like that.
right.
It's interesting because, I mean, it's, when we're looking at clowns in the circus and stuff like that as well, circuses are always affiliated with clowns, aren't they? But there you don't really see the creepy clowns in the circus. Well, I didn't anyway, right? But I just find that interesting. And as you say, always with kids. Why with kids? What do they want with kids? Again, it's that purity, right? That innocence, I would imagine, right?
Well, aside from the archons, which are a lot worse than the Rephaim, a lot more powerful, the Rephaim are ones behind all these people who are sacrificing the children. They're engaging these ancient spirits to gain power, just like I just got done saying. That was the whole point. They empower that magic. They become what Christians would call the Holy Spirit that empowers their faith. These things are the unholy spirits that empower that dark magic.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Totally. It's that like as above, so below, I would imagine as well. I'm just looking at what Jay is saying here again. They are illuminated at certain levels. Some appear as grey aliens, some reptilians, some as clowns. So either way, like, right, it just depends. They're not all looking the same.
Well, that takes us back to the homunculus, some of that stuff. So it all ties together, but it's hard to make a direct correlation with anything without exposing stuff I don't want to expose.
Yeah.
It's really dangerous to mess around with.
Wow. I'm just looking at I'm interested, yes, Caesar, Rome, and Hitler are said to be, I would say, that's archons, right, Simona? Not archons. I would mean archons. What is your take on that, Caleb?
Well, whatever force behind them was involved, I'm sure that they probably had something coming through them. As for they themselves being archons, I don't believe that.
Okay.
But again, they plugged in through the real society, through real magic, through the Thule society, and it's not Thule, it's Thule. That's how you say that. Thule society in the real was their gateway to power, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Right. Just going back to those spiritual gates that are opened and in the way that they are, how long do they stay open for? I mean, when you've opened them with in the way that they're being powered, how long do they actually stay open for before they close again?
Some of them are really quick. Some of them last a couple of hours. Depends on the ritual that you perform.
Right.
Bear in mind that it takes something out of you as well as those soul gems that were empowered to run that ritual in the first place. Soul crystals, whatever you want to call them. I call them soul gems because it makes more sense to me, but because that's what I saw them as. I didn't see them as raw crystals. Like your amethyst, I couldn't use that effectively because it's raw still.
So it has to be cut into shapes, and obviously the guys would know exactly.
Deliberate refraction points to focus that energy.
Right. Right. So when we're looking at quartz, for example, normal white quartz crystal, and you're often going to find it's cut into those points, right? Is that a good one? Is that a common one that is used?
Really, any kind of crystal, yes, that's one they use a lot. We didn't go super deep into the crystal. I just tried to point out a few things. But there's different properties for different materials, and different colors affect different frequencies. Different cuts affect different frequencies. It's like a speaker box for a speaker, basically. You can have just a raw speaker sitting on the table and you'll hear stuff through it. If you put it inside a tuned speaker box, you'll hear more stuff out of it. If that makes any sense. Or a flashlight. Absolutely. That has that mirrored cone that projects the light forward instead of just having a light bulb hanging in empty air. It provides focus. It provides a direction for that light to go in. When we were entrapping these things, the souls I'm talking about, you guide them into this using a combination of crystals. So,
and then the crystals would obviously have to, you would, according to every crystal's frequency, because every crystal has different frequencies, right? We understand that. So you would then need to know how to combine those frequencies and how to work them together. You can't just be taking a random crystal there, one there, and just putting them together and hoping for the best, right?
I wouldn't do that anyway, just because some of those things are lethally poisonous in combinations like that. That's something that most people don't
poisonous, what do you mean by that? When you say a crystal is
cause cancer, cause illness, and cause mental incapacitation, different things like that.
But wouldn't that be part of the objective, if you were using it for the dark or nefarious purposes, is to actually hurt someone, harm someone, kill someone, whatever?
I'm not talking about hurting or harming or killing anybody. You got to protect yourself first. So it pays to educate yourself on what you're dealing with. Like if you only heard about guns and you just went and picked one up and just started randomly playing with it without knowing anything about it, you stand a better than even chance of killing yourself, hurting yourself really bad. So think about that for a second.
I understand that completely, but someone who's an expert with guns, for example, would know how to use them and how to create the greatest destruction out of using certain guns, right?
Right.
And there again, like if a master of crystals, if there's such a thing, would know exactly what crystals to use that that can be combined, that creates the greatest destruction or poison or pain, right? So my point is that wouldn't these people who are using these crystals in a destructive way use them for nefarious purposes, as you say, for the poison that they can give off, harm, or whatever?
Right. It's definitely part of it. I said there's those 4 different colors of the magic. So you got the ones that are straddling the fence, the ones that are supposedly good, the dark ones, and the red shade ones are death worshippers. So depends on which one you're trying to follow.
So the 4 levels or the 4 colors of magic would be black, red, gray, and I think the other one was white, right?
Yeah.
So depending on where you want to be playing and what realm you want to be playing, has each realm got its own way of doing things? So let's say if you're going to use crystals in the gray realm, it's not going to be the same as using them in the red realm. You would use them differently there.
You can use anything anywhere. It just depends on your intention. It's about deliberation and intention.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So there's a lot of these guys that are out there that know exactly what they're doing. So again, understanding crystal magic and stuff like that, it's really just understanding that we really need to
be it's one of the fundamentals of alchemy, using crystals. We haven't touched on necromancy, we haven't touched on divination, we haven't touched on hardly anything else. We've been kind of stuck in alchemy for a while. So
right. But I think once we've understood that, we would then be able to move on to those other things. You know, speaking of necromancy, because wouldn't necromancy, now that necromancy is obviously talking to the dead and communing with the dead, right? Would that be the same as someone who is a medium? So someone who is channeling spirits that have crossed over, whether they are of the dark or of the light, would it be considered the same thing in the eyes
when
of God?
I practiced it, I didn't try to communicate with the dead at all. I was focused on trying to raise the dead.
Right. So you were trying to raise the dead. Why? What purpose did that give you?
Why not was my answer. Because it was something powerful to do.
So you could then raise them. And okay, let me ask you this. Were you able to raise anything like that, the dead?
Small animals.
And what did they do then? Did they become these obviously spirits that you could manipulate and control and use for your own purposes?
Or you handed it over to the Rephaim so they could do their thing with it.
And then the Rephaim was giving you power in different ways. So it was an exchange. Can I ask what you what was in exchange?
In terms of power?
Yeah.
Well, you almost have to sign on the dotted line when you want to make these deals with the devil, I'll call them. So it's tit for tat, exchange for exchange. That's kind of how that works out.
Very interesting. So you would let's say okay, let's say as an individual, you would decide you wanted to achieve that, right? And in order to achieve that, you knew that the Rephaim were able to help you achieve that because of certain energies or powers that they possessed. And you knew they wanted something, like, let's say, dead spirits of animals, right? So you would then raise that, give it to them. They would give you whatever it was you were needing in exchange. And that's how the contract worked. What were the side effects or after effects of that?
They didn't want the dead spirit of the animal. They wanted its body. They want to inhabit bodies in this world. That's like their number one goal, is to get out of that chaos realm and inhabit bodies here.
Okay, why would they want the body?
Because they don't have one.
Right. But how long can a spirit hover around in a dead body before? I mean, do you understand what I'm asking you? If a body is dead, how long can that spirit reside in that body?
Once I made that deal with them, I didn't concern myself with how it happened or what happened after that. I moved on to the next. This is just my experience I'm talking about. I'm not talking in general what would happen, because I didn't pay too much attention to that. I didn't say, oh my God, are you going to hurt this poor creature? I just gave it to them and moved on to the next thing.
So if they wanted the body, where was the spirit of the animal?
Assuming it was dead.
Yeah, obviously, if they wanted the dead body,
so
you would have
the
then
animal wasn't there. It's inhabited by something else, is what I'm getting at. It possesses that body and animates the body of its own accord because that's what it wanted.
I understand that. What happened to the spirit of the animal that was dead, though?
I don't know. I didn't ask the animal where it was going. I just did what I did.
Was that not when you would then take that spirit of the animal and capture it in a soul gem or something? That's what I'm asking.
Not always.
Right. Well, let's hope the spirit went back to God. That's all I can say. Because I'm hoping that would probably, I would imagine, when we're looking at the amount of animal sacrifice that happens. I mean, when we're hearing, I mean, I know we've been, just in conversations with Jessie over the years, and we understand what happens, how obsessed they are with animals in the system, right? Not just for I mean, they sacrifice animals, and I mean, it's anything from cats, dogs, goats, sheep, cows, horses, everything. They'll take anything they can get, right?
Anything.
So, yeah. Wow.
And there's different types of them. Like I said, they're all different kinds. Some are a lot more powerful than others. So,
yeah. I get that. Makes sense though, because if you're looking, I mean, I've always said, I don't believe animals are evil. But when we're actually looking at how certain animals are, like, when they belong to these dark creatures of the night, these people that I call the creatures of the night, and they've been possessed by this evil spirit, which they've now traded for whatever it is, right? So it's not necessarily the animal itself that's evil, but it's more the spirit that inhabits that body, right?
Correct.
That is evil.
It's like with humans.
Exactly.
No, I'm not trying to harp on that one subject. Like that's all I did all the time, every single time. I had different purposes and goals for what I was doing. The primary purpose for me was to gain mastery so that I can move on to the next magic. That was the primary goal for myself. Very selfish and pretty much uncaring at the time.
Well, I think that's really what the dark's about, right? And I mean, I go back to what what I always say on this channel, from the beginning, when they have identified babies and children as having bloodlines and special gifts. And I mean, if we're looking at your, what you've told us about your bloodlines as well, being half Native American, half German, having those strong bloodlines, and I know your German bloodlines are very strong as well as spiritual gifts, they absolutely would have put a target on your back from the beginning, and they literally, their main objective is to make sure that the kids experience no love. It's all pain, it's all torture, it's all stripping you of every human quality that is possible, so that they can have human beings or people doing this type of stuff, because that serves their purpose, right?
Right. I want to go back a second to the homunculus. Remember, we had to take a creature and basically dissolve it down into its basic components in order to recreate that creature. So we were doing that not just with necromancy, but with just about everything. When I say we, I don't mean me and 15 other people in a class. I'm talking about me and my own studies dealing with these spirits. Dealing with these, by dealing with, I mean exactly that, dealing with them. The sole purpose was to empower myself with the end goal of becoming somebody that could raise the dead for Charlotta's sake. That was the driving force behind that at that time.
Right. And I want to just remind the viewers, for those of you who have not watched Caleb's previous, and in fact the second interview, I want to just refer you back to Caleb's second interview regarding the wild hunt. He was a child of 10 and was captured in the wild hunt. And after that, when he was captured, he was put into a metal box for 3 days with a 17-year-old girl who was a breeder in the system. And for 3 days in this metal box. After day one, a dude comes and throws a knife into the box and tells him, one of you gets out alive. Charlotta took her life so that Caleb could live. And that was his driving force after that, because he wanted to bring her back to life. And then we go back to Star Wars, right? We were also talking about that whole Star Wars programming, and Jessie herself has spoken about that. Caleb has mentioned that as well, where then they go, okay, well, you can get her back, but this is what you have to do. You've got to basically defeat God. So the whole objective here is to get a young boy, impressionable mind at the age of 10, to groom him into being this powerful, powerful being who is there, who can now defeat God and win and bring Charlotta back to life. So that is pretty much how these guys work. And all you have to do is look at Star Wars and you understand how they are programmed. And I bet there's more, there's quite a few more kids, humans that have been subjected to those horrors, right? Caleb, what do you say about that?
Right. Well, the end goal was to become higher up in the pyramid, if you want to call it a pyramid, the power structure. So the higher up you got, the more rarefied the air it was. There are fewer and fewer and fewer of us. And as we got higher up, we were powerful. The end goal was eventually to transmutate into a hybrid being like them. The Bible calls it becoming a Gibborim, or a mighty man. That's what Nimrod did. That's what some of these other kings of old that you hear about, that's what they were able to do. They accepted that higher levels of magic and they became transmutated into something else.
What was the something else?
You become like the Nephilim were.
Right. Wow.
That was the end goal.
Right. So in a nutshell, I mean, and I'm just actually looking at some of the comments here, and someone like Dorinda Sizemore, Durenda. And I highly recommend for you guys who haven't watched Caleb's previous shows, and you've just started watching now, I do recommend you watch his first shows, because he explains from the beginning how this happened. Obviously taken in through bloodlines, his Native American bloodlines, and mentioned as well that he's a direct descendant of, I think, Yellow Tangle Hair, right? Was your great-great-grandfather, who was,
he was a giant.
A giant and a warrior of note with the Native American Indians. So of course they want those, that bloodline and that absolute warrior blood, combined with spiritual gifts which you've had, and what Caleb was also saying now is that obviously the gifts is what, and the cruelty as well, right? The abuse, the consistent abuse that has occurred, really takes people into the place that they want them to. And what we're really hearing now is the raw. These are the guys that have been in the mix of it, right? You know, there's so much stuff in terms of also the military, your military career and stuff that you briefly touched on.
It goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah, it's all linked. So how the military works alongside this as well. You know, the whole way that we've been completely duped for so long. Wow.
Right.
Incredible.
So that's where we were sent out to find those living ships that I spoke of. To resurface the AI that's now starting to invade and take over this world too. They're like the new interface between that crystalline realm and here.
Right. Absolutely. So that's pretty much what you guys were hunting for, right? Was the yeah. I mean, I know we've spoken quite a bit about that, and I don't really want you to go back into all of that, because you know, our previous shows have definitely touched on that. But really, it's all about bringing in the Antichrist. The Antichrist is not a person; it's an entire system, and that you guys were sent to find these, as you say, the living ships, and how it all comes in together, and all of this is part of that, right? I'm wondering, though, you know, when it comes to this, you must have been offered some top positions and stuff like that, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there wasn't a limit to what I could achieve if I wanted it. So,
right. Absolutely. So, and I mean, that's kind of like what these people are looking for, isn't it? I call them people, but I don't really believe they are. But I don't really want to, I'm trying to be impeccable with my word as much as what I can. Right. So they're looking for that. So, I mean, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the positions you were offered, or what were the rewards if you had not turned around from this. And I'm just looking, Laura, you were, you know, did Caleb regret this? If you've been listening to any of our shows and just listened previously, you will understand, right? Yeah, God always wins, but you know, this is why we need disclosures like this, and people telling us what's going on. It takes a lot of courage. Yeah, I understand you, Nuan Caleb. That's why I keep saying, you guys, please go and watch his previous stuff. Otherwise, we come in here and we have people getting half the story. And that's why it's really important. This is a series. It's a series on his life. It's a series on how he got into the system and where we're at now. So I know there are those of us who've been following from the beginning that understand what this is about.
right.
So, yeah. I want to just, maybe Caleb, if you could just talk to us a bit about the promises that people like yourself are made at the end of the day? What were the promises you were made?
Well, after a while, I moved past the trinkets and bells and whistles garbage, I call it, because that's all it is. It's just sleight of hand and illusion. That's one of the very first magics you master. You move into the real power, I call it. And that's where they do focus on you learning how to use crystals and other items. Crystals aren't the only way to do it. To begin to perform real spellcraft. These things will help you open portals. They'll help you. You can manifest money. You can manifest things all the way around you if you wanted to. It just depends on how far you want it to go. There's no limit. The limiting factor was you yourself and what you could think of. You know, the Bible does talk about that too, that if he didn't just confuse the language, man would eventually reach the heavens if they're united enough. I don't think that the Tower of Babel was a tower. I think it was a gate they were trying to open.
Oh.
Because they found the first 48 gates and they're looking for that 49th gate, which you find in Logath.
Right. Wow. So it's and again it brings me, just it takes us back to what you were saying. When we always talk about the faith. I mean, you have pretty much seen it all. I know there's not much you have not seen and experienced, right? So you would know firsthand that these guys have the utmost faith in what they do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And which is why they are able to create the evil that they do. So for us to counteract that, if you will, or for us to change what is currently happening, we have to have faith as well. But it's not the faith in the same thing that they have faith in, right? We have faith in God, right? Maybe you can speak to us a little bit about that again. Because
the very first thing that's really super important for any of this to function for you personally in your own lives is you have to wake up. You can't be asleep here. Those evil creatures and beings and spirits and everything else, they don't sleep at all, ever. And they're so much more smarter than us as regular humans. They outwit us on every corner and every turn, and they're really powerful. So once you wake up to that fact first, you can start to understand that this isn't something you can do by yourself. You need God to empower you back to where you should have been from the beginning of anything that was thrown away by our ancestor Adam. Once you understand that, this stuff becomes a moot point, it becomes irrelevant, and it becomes powerless. The other thing too, part of that awakening is understanding that you have to agree with these things in order for them to work on you or work in you. You have to agree to it. And that can be through ignorance or it can be deliberate.
Right.
And they make it about as hard as possible to have faith in God. They'll try to pull you 16 different ways to Sunday. And then after that, they'll play 16 more different ways to Sunday to get you to not believe in God or the fact that he's real or that he will empower you with something that's far more powerful than anything they can offer. I am trying to sound the siren song of the counterculture here. I am trying to do that. We are the counterculture. Those of us that are in the position to resist this. It does sound insane and crazy when you hear it from a dead go here. But if you understand the backstory and you understand what is really trying to be said here, now is the time. Now is the time for the warriors to stand up. The warriors and then the healers behind them. It's time for all of us to get our shit together so that we can make an effective presence here. Not so that we can be our own powerful entity, but so that we can help people wake up and come to the realization that this is a fallen world and it is going to come to an end one way or another. not long from now.
Absolutely, and amen to that. Pete, yes, I did. Yellow tangle hair, yes, I did. I did say that. So, and it's true, and it's exactly what you're saying. You know, it's one way or the other. So we either stand up for the light, or we slip into the dark through ignorance. And ignorance, I mean, you know, I'd love for you just to expand more on ignorance, right? Because I mean, I love you know, we've spoken about that a lot, and I know some of us I know we had a conversation and about ignorance, and you actually pointed it out very clearly to me, which was very interesting. Is that, you know, if you're going to a different country, for example, and there's a stop sign and you can't read Chinese and it says Chinese, you know, it doesn't matter that you can't read Chinese. If you're not going to stop at the stop sign, you're going to get knocked over by a bus, right? So you got to learn what the Chinese stop sign means, for example, right? So that's very interesting, that ignorance is not bliss. We cannot be ignorant to what is going on around us, which is why we are having people like yourself who are disclosing these massive, massive truths. And it's not easy to listen to, and it's not easy to hear. I know sometimes my heart breaks 1,000 million times, and not just for what I'm hearing, but for you as well, because I know what you've been through and what it's taken you to share your story on this channel. So again, I'm eternally grateful. We are eternally grateful to you.
Well, I want to do something before I go into the ignorance part of it. I want to let people know who haven't heard me say this before. I do own my own BS. I own it completely. I know it was wrong. I repented of it, and I turned my back on it almost 10 years ago. And for most of that 10 years, I've been on the run. They've tried to kill me numerous times. And I'm not saying, oh, I think somebody's after me. No, they definitely were after me. And this isn't easy to talk about for me because I'm ashamed of what I did. I don't live in shame, but I do have that repentant heart because of it. And because I chose to run away. I was the Jonah that's supposed to go to Nineveh, and I said, F you, God. So he put me in the belly of the whale for however long here. Now I am in Nineveh trying to tell the people, you know, I'm trying to say something to the people. Because ignorance is not bliss. You guys are in the fight for your lives here. If you can't see that in your daily life, then what do you see? You see what they try to present to you. They're going to feed you any amount of cheap spaghetti that they can because the cheap spaghetti is cheap. Just think of it that way. Doesn't mean that it's good food. It just means that it's cheap. And they can keep you preoccupied with that in any way, shape, or form. They use entertainment, they use sex, they use drugs, they use alcohol, they use all kinds of different things to get you to look away from the truth. Once you see the truth and you start to see it for real, you understand, hey, there's something completely different about this place. There's something completely different than what they're telling us. And it is, time is very, very, very short if you haven't noticed on the world stage. Things are changing at a rapid pace. There's coming a time when we're not going to be able to listen to somebody like myself telling you, hey, this is what you need to look out for. That's the whole point and purpose, is so that you're not ignorant, so you can see what's out there, to see what you're facing, see what comes at you every single day of your life and has since before you were born. Now it's all around you. You're literally steeped in this stuff from day one. It's in food. It's in packages show certain labels that have witchcraft symbols on it. It's in what they spray in the air. It's everywhere. So that's why it's really important to learn these things and then to have faith enough to trust God to show you how to overcome it. So again, I can only give you my experience on it. So
I fully agree. Linda, thank you so much. Much appreciated. And of course, our lovely Joanne as well, who is always so generous on this channel. Really, really, really appreciate that. And it's so true what you're saying, you know, I mean, we're surrounded by it. And I'm going to refer people again, a movie that you actually told me to watch a few months is it They Listen? Hang on. Is that the title of it? They Live. They Live. Very, very interesting. They Live. It's really understanding subliminal programming. And, you know, through, I mean, these guys, once they put on these glasses, it was, you know, it's a story. I'm not going to go into it, but then you can see who the humans are and who the Rephaim, Nephilim, whatever, walking around in human bodies, because it's been around since forever. And as you say, it's not just occurring now. It hasn't just started occurring now. It's always been, it's been around for a very long time. It's just that now, with our technology, we're able to see it differently. And finally, you know, thank God that the pandemic actually was the thing that woke many of us up to this, right? I know it was supposed to really dumb us down even more, but God has a wonderful way of working with us and creating miracles, right? Arranging his miracles. So many of us have woken up during this time, and that has been a blessing in disguise.
Well, it pays to be prepared. I mean, some of this stuff sounds too amazing to be real, or like it's just some kind of made up fantasy. I wish I could tell you that it was. You got people who are in my former position now who are actively doing this every single day of the week. They don't pick one day to go worship their gods. They do it every single day, and they don't stop. And again, it's like you said, the end goal is to bring in that system and bring in this final conflict. That's the whole point. They know that for sure. They know it without any doubt whatsoever. So for us to get into semantical arguments or denominational arguments or any of this other nonsense that they got us with rings through our nose following blindly is ridiculous. Wake up. It's time to wake up. It's time to do something about this. And the doing something about it is to make sure that we save as many people as we can to get off this flaming train wreck of a planet. Because it's going to be replaced at some point. It's going to be made new.
Yeah. Right. I appreciate that. Wow. Okay. I want to just see if there's maybe one or two more questions here that's in the chat. Mona, have you seen anything? Yeah, or just commenting on. Yeah, just commenting on some of the just people really being grateful, Caleb, that you're talking. And for those of you, you know, who, as I said, please, if you're new to Caleb's show, please go and watch from the beginning. It's a series. It explains his life, where he's come from. He does repeat some of the stuff on the shows, but it's very difficult to repeat, obviously, everything. And then you can get an understanding of what this is about and where he comes from and who he is. And I want to just say, you know, I've been speaking to you for quite a while behind the scenes, off air, and it's been amazing, the information that you've imparted and that you are sharing with us. And again, there's some things that Caleb will not share because he does not want to give people too much information. You never know who's going to get this information and go and try dodgy things with it, which is not the purpose here. He's not going to try and get you guys to go and do things. He's not going to teach you how to do magic and stuff like that. That is not on his agenda, yeah. He can't obviously talk about certain things that he's done in the military, right? So you will, as we go, as we move along, we're going to just, you know, be speaking more and more about stuff, you know, like things like necromancy, all of that, which is what we as humans need to understand, right? there's so much arguing, and that's exactly what you were saying, Caleb. There's so much military. There's so much arguing between us. These guys they've gotten us to fight with each other about the most stupid things, right? Really, I mean, and when we just look at the whole Tartaria series, right? And I know there's so much more, but Tartaria was one of the things that also worked me up to a lot of what we're talking about now in the last couple of years. And we understand how effectively they've done the whole divide and conquer thing over the years. And we've just sucked it in and we've just kind of fallen for it. But this is why I'm glad with the pandemic, God had his way of working and waking people up as well. So I'm very grateful that we are doing this together. And, as Caleb says, we're a team. So it's not even about anything else other than the fact that we've got to consider ourselves a team. I know Caleb had very strong leadership abilities in his military career. So he understands all about teamwork. Maybe you can just talk to us a little bit, Caleb, before we end off today's show on being a team. What does that mean in the way that we are right now?
Well, I came up in a very inducted family in all different kinds of things, masonry, the shrine, the military, whatever you want to say about any of that. Most of my brothers are all officers in the U.S. Army. The highest ranking one is a full colonel. My dad was a major. I achieved the rank of captain in one of the services. I'm still not going to say which one. We all understood that we had a responsibility to those who followed us, who were coming in our footsteps, basically. I was always taught to lead from the front, not an armchair captain whatsoever. I will go do this before you will. That's how I always used to teach my boys when we go out. I call them my boys even though we're about the same age because I was like their father figure. And I had to make sure that we got there safely and we got through the whatever operations that we were in part of without losing anybody if we could. But if we did, that community is so small that it's really heartfelt. It's really devastating to lose somebody that you've known like that for a long time. They're closer than your own family. And so that's why I equated this as a team here, a team effort. It's not to put people down. It's not to throw people under the bus. It's not to fight and argue behind the scenes. None of that stuff for me. I'll be the very first one to put the squash on that. I'll tell you to buck up and take it on the chin if that's what you got to do. We're going to do it together, all of us. We're going to learn together. We're going to get through this. And we're going to fight where we have to fight. And if somebody dies, we're going to mourn for them. We're going to keep going. We're just going to keep going. And that's what we have to do. So teamwork for me is just pushing through even when you don't want to. You don't want to let your other teammates down, so you keep going. You keep going, you're going.
Indeed. Thank you. And I just, I think, who is it? Stacy wants to know if you were in Black Ops. Can you answer that?
Well, Black Ops is like a misused term all the time, but when I tell you that I was involved in some things that I can't tell you about, that is exactly what I mean, is I can't tell you about it.
There you go.
I was always told that nobody would know what I was doing or where I was going. They wouldn't know any kind of context. They wouldn't ever acknowledge anything that happened. I will call it conflicts other than war. That's what they used to engage us in. So it wasn't a declared war. It wasn't something that was part of the public purview or the public eye. There's a conflict other than war. And it happens every single day on this planet as we see it. It happens every single day somewhere in the world. These guys are out there doing their thing. Did that for quite a while. So
things that none of us are aware of. I mean, while we've been laying safely in our beds at night and thinking that our world is safe because you guys are out there fighting in Iraq and other places. Well, it might be so, but there's so much more than what's
Well, and by the way,
happening.
Don't call me a super soldier. I absolutely despise that term.
Please don't. Just don't, guys. I can tell you from I don't have a military family. I have, really, I've sort of educated myself as I've gotten onto this platform, and I've made it my business to find people like Caleb. I've made it my business. And I'm not saying there aren't other relative people out there saying what they're saying and doing what they're doing. Stacey, as always, thank you so much. But for me, my gift is I am gifted. I'll acknowledge that. And I have a nose for the truth. You see, I got a big schnozzle. God gave me a big schnozzle in this life. And I smell out what I need to smell out. And I'm very, very happy to have connected with the likes of you, Caleb, because if there's anyone who can be sharing with us the truth, and the truth is not always pretty, and I have to say I'm pretty protective over you. So for this very reason, because I know there are so many people out there who misunderstand a testimony such as yours. But I'm extremely grateful that our viewers on this platform get that. They get, and I've been saying for a long time, especially when I started interviewing Jessie 3 years ago, it's people like you who we are waiting for. And when you've come out, you've turned your life around, you've handed your life over to God in the most beautiful way. I will be a witness to that because I've spent a lot of time speaking with you. It is so beautiful to be able to see that you can come and bravely share your story, despite what criticism there might be for you, but you do it nonetheless. And I want to just say thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
I saw someone ask about if I have a dog. I do have dogs. I have two of them, two little Chihuahua boys.
It's little service dogs, yeah?
Yeah. They're like my shadows. So
cute.
Absolutely.
6'2", 290-pound guy with little tiny dogs. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I know that some of the conversations we've had, grrr, grrr, grrr. And these dogs are amazing. The minute they feel negative energy, boy, do they respond to that. It's insane, actually. It's actually quite a miracle. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. Anyway.
Yeah, they definitely watch my back in ways that I can't. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to own one more thing before we go. As a result of my traumas and everything else that I went through, and I lost those 4 children. I don't know if you guys heard that on Carrie Saint show. I'll relate it again at some point. I started to drink, and that whole process of me drinking, it'd be the same as if you had gotten a DUI. Doesn't matter what you went to get the DUI. The fact of the matter is you chose to drink that got you that DUI. So I have to own that. It cost me my marriage. It cost me some friendships. It cost me jobs. It cost me my physical health. I'm really suffering through it now, amongst other things that have caused that physical damage, but I own it. I want you to know that it's not an easy struggle all the time, but I'm not perfect is what I'm getting at here. I got problems and struggles too. I'm not anything special, I'm just a man that made a lot of mistakes who's been forgiven. And that's the most important thing I could say. So, but I own it. It's my fault. It's my problem. I would never speak ill of the other side of that story. And it is what it is now. But I want to put that out there before anybody else can say anything about me for any reason. I will always own my own issue. I'll always do it. And if it helps you to hear that, so you can own your own shit, for lack of a better term, then just know that I did it first. I did it publicly. I did it in front of all of you. I got nothing to hide. I don't have anything to hide besides my identity, because I don't want to be murdered in my sleep. I don't want to get blown up in my house or whatever. They do those kinds of things because I used to do that to other people myself, so that I know how dangerous it is. So,
well, I think, if it really is important to be able to do that. And I mean, I said that. And by the way, somebody asked what show you said that on was Kerry Saint, by the way. Kerry Saint, we did an interview with her, and that was on adoption and abuse, because obviously Caleb was also adopted. And a lot of this is coming from the adopted or stolen children, so to speak. They're not adopted, many of them. They're actually stolen from their mothers at birth and stuff like that. So it's very important. And that's where we spoke about that as well. So adoption and the abuse goes hand in hand. It starts with the adoption. So anyway, so any of you want to catch that show, brilliant show with Kerry Saint. She's the adoption advocate on our Focus on Australia channel. Amazing lady. So you guys can go and catch that interview that we did on Friday as well. Cool. Caleb, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to close off with before.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate Understanding Conspiracy and his work that he has done, because it is an amazing body of work. And I totally appreciate every video that he comes up with, because it says stuff that I can't say or won't say. There's obviously more to the story than meets the eye, and we can go on 4 or 5 shows into this and continue down that trail if you really want to. I do appreciate him putting the work out there that he does. So check him out.
Wonderful. Appreciate you too. Okay, on that note, would you like to end off for us in prayer, please?
Sure. Heavenly Father, again, thank you for another good showing. Thank you for more revelation of truth. Thank you for helping me get through this, because some of this is very hard to talk about. Thank you for forgiveness, for mercy. Thank you for grace. Thank you for everything that you do for us. I ask you to provide us with all we need and help us to become a unified body, a true body, not the fake one that you see that all they want is money. I'm just asking you, keep us going, keep us sustained, protect us, open doors that need open and close others that need closed. Above all else, help us keep our eyes on you so that we know the right direction to go every single time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen indeed. Great, guys. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Joanne, to Linda, and to Stacy for supporting Caleb. We really appreciate you guys. And on that note, we shall see you again on Friday. Not Friday, Thursday with Caleb. I got Jessie on Wednesday and then Caleb on Thursday, and we'll have you back again on Sunday as well. We'll let you know the topics that we're going to be covering. So watch this space. Cool, everybody. God bless you all. Take good care. And hope you all having a fantastic day, and enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you soon. Cherry buys.
Bye.
Hey guys, welcome back to Solutions with Shanti this time, where we're going to be doing part 2 of the living buildings of the system, as well as having a Q&A. And I just want to welcome everyone back here. Thank you again for my wenches with wrenches. What did Duke actually say in the last show? I actually wanted to guys, I kind of said something about the men. If anyone can remember, I thought that was quite cool, actually. The comment that Duco made about wenches with wrenches and something with spanners or something. I can't remember. That was actually quite funky. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm just going to bring beautiful Jessie on. We'll chat. Here we go.
Hello,
Lady
hello.
of the day. Welcome back, Jess. Nice to have you
Thank
again.
you.
And
You
I
as
think,
well.
yeah, do you want to, sorry, Jess, do you want to just open for us in prayer?
Yes. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this time together today, Lord. We ask that you would bless our conversation. We ask that you would bless our internet, our airwaves, our technology. And we ask that you would bless all those listening today. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Lizanne. Fellas with fasteners. I think that's
That's a good one. Yeah.
indeed it is. And I just want to remind you guys while we're here as well that we will be doing Patreon Book Club on Sunday with Jessie as well. So just a reminder, it's the first Sunday of the month. And then Madam goes gallivanting. No, you're yes till next week, aren't you? And then you go gallivanting for 3
Then I can go
whole.
gallivanting for 3 weeks. But
So
I'll be
fun.
back after that.
Well, that'll be wonderful. Then we'll see you in May, and then it's midwinter here. Okay, all right.
Right?
Let's not think that far ahead because I'm shivering already. Already you can see I've got a jacket on from the earlier
Yeah.
show. Definitely creeping in anyway. Jess, so wow, we were having a very interesting conversation. I have to say I loved really understanding how it all fits together.
Mm-hmm.
And it really starts with the grandfather tree, doesn't it?
I wouldn't say necessarily that it starts with that. That can just be one of the avenues because they don't
Right.
need the grandfather tree. They can just do the land itself, whether that's a graveyard under there or even just, shedding blood on the land, they can use that. So it doesn't have to be with a grandfather tree, but
Okay.
that those are commonly used.
Freaky. But what we were talking about before was actually Biltmore, which is Gloria Vanderbilt, the mansion that has now become like a public place to visit. And I know you've had in your childhood, Gloria was your upbringing, let's call it that. So maybe if you can just fill us in again, just for those, and I know probably most people know that story, that part of your story, but just for those who don't, maybe you can just fill us in a little bit about the types of things that was going on at Biltmore and with Gloria and family and where we headed now with this, because this is also considered a living building.
Yeah, true. So, in my affidavits, I talk about, Gloria Vanderbilt, and she was one of the grand high priestesses for the Eastern Quadrants. She was one of the individuals that they consider teachers in the system for hierarchy children. So, there's different things, that are going to happen. Like when children are chosen for higher level positions within the system, they're going to have several different teachers, people who are going to train them to do what they do. Gloria's specialties were, divination, as well as, she got into the really dark necromancy, as well as, we'll just say, taxidermy type things. And she would she would blend that with her divination. So, we've done some shows where we talked about, how she would use her doll houses in her divination, and would curse people with those, and even foreshadow or foretell their deaths in these horrific scenes that she would create in her doll houses. Mary Lou Whitney was involved in some of that as well, but not quite as dark as Gloria Vanderbilt was. But I've talked about, some of the memories from different stints that I did at Biltmore, as well as other places that she had. But she had, it was common for her in their different homes to have an area where she would work on her doll houses. Usually those areas, would be connected to the attic or up in the attic, and she would have multiple doll houses that she'd be working on at one time. And then she would usually have a connection to a closet and dolls. And I've kind of described, like, how me and my training partner had got locked in one of the closets with the dolls and had to work our way out of that with these dolls that, there were spirits that were with them that would attack and things like that. So she, there was a lot with her. When you go to Biltmore, there's gargoyles all over the place, all over the whole structure of the mansion itself is all gargoyles. Um, and then, as you get like facing the mansion, or the mansion faces a hill that they have, at the very top of that hill is a shrine to Artemis, or basically, they'll use the name Diana in their thing, but it's basically Artemis or Ashtaroth. And they have the spiritual gate for the main mansion faces that hill. And then to the left side of the mansion, when you're facing it, they have their gardens and their area where she had all her plants and would get into the apothecary that she did and the different training with that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it gets interesting. They have a lot there. But we talked about like how things have kind of changed, because they some of it, they've just kind of upgraded. But now when you go there, they have it turned into a whole tourist place. One of the areas where, like, underground, she had her whole, not a lab, but her whole work area where she would do her taxidermy and grotesque stuff. That was under the stable area. And now above ground, they've turned that stables into a restaurant. So that was very, very
Excuse
disturbing
me?
to me. Yeah.
Excuse me. Did I hear you correctly? You're saying that underground, she had her taxidermy, or like a laboratory type thing. And I can imagine this is not,
For
even though I
humans,
found
not animals.
animal.
It was humans.
So,
Yeah.
and now above that, she's built a restaurant.
Yes.
So are you saying there's a restaurant at Biltmore currently that is built above Gloria Vanderbilt's taxidermy, human taxidermy?
Yes.
Is it still operational? Let me just ask you that first. Is there still operations going on under there, or is it been
I don't
cleared
know.
out?
Like, I've reported an affidavit, so I don't know if it's still operational. I believe that there's, the circle groups that she had, the people that she had in charge of that land and area, I would say that's still very much in place. When I went to go back and do a walkthrough and stuff, like the moment I got onto the property, you know, it was very clear that they were aware that I was there. Um, you know, and that's all I'll say about that, but they were very aware that I was there on the property. Um, you know, so it was interesting because there are some things that have changed, but other things, you know, very much are still going on. And then, you know, after not too long after that, you know, we had the whole flooding. That whole area was wiped out except for Biltmore. Um, you know, I mean, it's just massive devastation. You had the entire area, you know, flooded and taken out, and all that remained really was that area by Biltmore.
It's just pure evil. There's nothing, I don't know, I can't imagine anything good ever happens there. When that kind of stuff is so overriding, how does anything good even happen there? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's pretty bad. There's, you know, there's so much, and you had so much underground. You have more underground there than above ground. You know, that above ground is just kind of like a pit. The mansion itself is just an access point, a pinnacle to what's below ground. But there's a lot underground there that they cover up, and you know, I mean, I've reported that there's a massive. You even got connections with the entire Nazi submarine line connecting under there. So,
Wow.
you know,
So what else happens there nowadays? And how long has this been open to the public, by the way, Baltimore?
I think for quite a while. Yeah, they turned it. Yeah, many years ago, they turned it open to the public. They've got, you know, they do like weddings, a lot of events. They've got multiple restaurants. They have more of like your private type restaurants for upper, you know, they're pretty expensive. I'll say it's like your upper class type feel, resort almost. They have a hotel there. They have almost like this whole little village with shops that you can go in, where they sell exclusive products like their wine. They've got a winery there. They have flocks, fields like of sheep, and raise their own flocks of sheep and goats. Um, you know, so they've got some farms connected to some of uh, the fields outsourced around Biltmore that they. So pretty much like if you think about like the old lords of the land type scenarios where you'd have a castle with a lord or lady in it, and then you would have villages or things that those individuals oversaw and kind of governed. Um, that's kind of how Biltmore is structured and set up. So it's pretty expansive and still dark. Uh, you know, still has. I think you know their apothecary stuff is still going on. A little farther out from there, you have the massive lithium fields. That was a big, you know, they were one of the biggest producers with the lithium, and you still see that. Um, the gate there is closed, but you know, it was interesting because they're still funneling energy that pours out off of that gate through certain things, and then their contracts were still, you know, as being upper level members in the system, they were some that held certain contracts, which is why they have that big shrine to Artemis at the top of the hill. Part of that is connected to their, you know, Ashtaroth is a principality that has authorities over, you know, kind of, we'll just say the female body is one of her authorities, and including the waterways. She shares a contract with Leviathan for the waterways of the womb. And so in that, you also have the what they call milk contracts, which are that they'll dedicate those born in the womb and their nourishment to Artemis or Ashtaroth. So Gloria Vanderbilt was one of the biggest ones holding the milk contracts. And so those were still in place, but they are not in place anymore.
Do you just want to maybe explain again, for those who don't know, what milk contracts are?
Yeah, so that even gets into the spirit cooking. You've got two ways. So, basically it's a dedication to Ashtaroth and other spirits, the hierarchy children or the expendable children. In those contracts, they basically will, consume infants in the milk and in the womb. So, it gets to, they take the life of some in order to supposedly give life to the others. So you get a desecration of the milk, which is, given to the infants, to the small children.
Nothing is sacred. And then we go and eat ice cream there.
Yeah.
So what's in that ice cream that you're eating
That's
there?
a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. They could put anything in there. Yeah.
I mean, it's
like you
like
want to
actually,
believe they're good. You want to believe they're good. And you don't think, like, your natural thing is just to think, oh, this is, what fun. This is a good time, good memories. Like, they make it look like you're building family memories, and you're like, oh, this is fun. Let's do it. Let's have a good time. And then it's like, all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. And, like, what are they doing with that? And that's the sad part, is that so many people don't know. And, but in that too, I go back to, there's so much, it's so vast, like, we don't know. We just don't know what they've all done to everything. And what's
so
the best
here's
way
what I'm
to
thinking.
overcome that is just prayer,
So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking because obviously these guys, as we know, are highly adept at magic, right? So I'm pretty sure they wouldn't think twice about casting some sort of illusion spells on the people that came in there, right? Unknowingly, unwittingly, because let's think about this. The gates are closed. Baltimore, this beautiful mansion, now it's open. You no doubt pay a fee to go in there. I'm sure you would. Or you would go in, but everything, everything you purchasing, your food, your trinkets, drinks, little memorabilia, right?
They curse it, and you take it back home with you.
So you kind of, exactly, you've chosen to go in, like everything else. You've chosen to go in. Unless you go in there, for me, the thing that changes that is if you go in with a different intention. It's like when we were talking about a few weeks ago, the divination thing. And I spent like 2.5 years really looking into this. But I didn't go into listening to the readings that I was listening to with the intention of finding truth for answers I was looking for. You know what I'm saying? I stepped back and I looked and I said, I actually want to see what goes on. So I was observing more from a research point of view. And I could see how easily, like words and things they use, get people hooked in.
Right.
And I could see there were even days I would go, okay, hang on, I've got to go listen now. And I went, whoa, watch. I was watching myself, you know.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, like, even with stuff like that, right? If you go in with the consciousness that you're going to observe, right? And you pray for protection, you go in with God's protection, then I think it's different. You'll observe things differently.
And
if you do
anoint,
so
like,
with intention.
You know, put anointing oil on your
Right,
shoes, and
exactly.
you're going in to redeem, to stop up the work that they're doing. You know, there's a shift in that, you know, it's interesting that just so little, like such little acts of faith can move such massive mountains, because really they have no power or authority. Like the
Yeah,
moment we go in there with that intention to pray, to anoint, to
exactly.
consecrate,
But
they
it is
can't do
such,
anything about that.
it's so true that, because, you know, wow, the illusion that they cast is so deceptive, you know. Here's this beautiful, regal, wealthy woman, right, living her
Right.
best life, which is the illusion that's cast to the public in this beautiful mansion. Now, come people, come and see. And it's all the surface beauty, because that's what the Luciferian system
Yeah.
is about. It's really all about material goods, material goods, and how
Or
much
even
of that you
family,
put
they pull
into.
it in with the family time, like, you know, Christmas times, holidays, you know, oh, come, you know, spend a weekend here, enjoy your family time. There's so much to do. And that's how they pull people in, you know,
Exactly.
and get people to check out, you know, spend a weekend. They even put massive art galleries there. So, you know, they have these big names that they'll display their artwork, and, you know, people want to go and appreciate things like that. Um, you know, it's crazy.
So, what do you think the intention is with that? Now, if I think again, we're looking at those big castles, the Neusch,
There's
that's the one. That's the one word I can't wrap my tongue around. That's so crazy, because I'm usually quite good at pronouncing things, but that is one castle. For some reason, clearly, I have issues with saying that word. But it's like, you know, they're also. So it's like, obviously, people going in there, and I'm sure they're harvesting loosh or energy from
Yeah,
people, you
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing they'll be doing at Biltmore right now. You know, going in there, opening up this beautiful area, sitting, and yes, all the goods, I'm sure, have got all kind of witchy things attached to them. How do they actually harvest the energy of the people, though? Because they're not really traumatizing them, and they like trauma. That's what I'm wondering. So maybe they just like a little bit of sweetness every now and again as well, with a nice energy that comes in there. That's what I'm thinking. What is it?
Well, you get a lot more energy with the positive than with the negative emotions. You know, but these are areas where there's so much trauma in the land, you know, generations of horrific things. And then on top of that, then now they add the, you know, the good times, but that's part of the illusion, you know, is that people are going there giving their positive energy to the place, and you just have these energy suckers that are sucking it all in. You know, it's
It's
like
true.
energy vampirism would be a good way to explain what they're doing, but it's like energy vampirism.
Then let's say, I mean, you go there, spend the morning or the day there. I would imagine it would probably be an outing, a day long outing type thing, and probably feel pretty damn drained after that. Maybe you got a headache, maybe you're exhausted and you can't imagine why. Would that then create, maybe, if you go there, for example, giving consent without really understanding what you're giving consent to, and the little Lucias are sucking everything out of you. You go home and you're drained and tired, and maybe now you're fighting with your husband or your mother or whatever it might be because you're just irritated and aggravated. Does that then create an entry point for attachments, let's say, to follow you home from these places?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it does.
Right, that's what I'm thinking, because it's like they've got these little hitchhikers, these little chicken
the little
demons
chicken spirits,
yeah,
that the hordes of chicken
right,
spirits that taunt and just cause chaos and destruction.
right. That's what I'm saying. It's like they'll hitchhike on them there. And when you're tired and drained, because these little things know exactly what they want and what effect they have as well. They're very clever, right? Or sneaky. So it's like then hitchhiking a ride on your shoulder home and necking in your energy, type thing. You're arguing, you're fighting, you're not happy. Suddenly, an fight out of nowhere occurs, and then you run off and sleep with another woman that night or another man, because you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, it happens.
Yeah, it does. It brings it to that place of the sins, tempting people to sin, and causes those access points to, how does the enemy get authority or legal ground to attack us? It comes through sin. That's the enemy's only legal ground. So, before you get the sin, usually there's a temptation for that sin. And so that's what, those spirits are good at, is tempting. Originally, what did God create them for? They were to be ministering spirits. But the opposite of that is spirits that are going to tempt or lure, draw you into something.
Absolutely. To me, it just makes sense. It's like the lure, the beauty. You go there, you're relaxed, you're having a great time. You might have a glass of wine or two or three, and before you know it, boom, you're wide open and you're tired and frustrated, and off you go. And next thing, 100 families out of 500 are arguing and having a car accident, or I don't know, kids of. That's to me how they erode. That's how this kind of like, it's not just happening in Baltimore. It's the after effects of that as well. It's what follows those people home after that. That for me is really what they're after, because that's how they multiply. That's how they get more of themselves, or more of
or get you to come back, because you get so drained, you get home and it makes home a frustrating place that you can't wait to get back.
And then, it was such a fantastic time there. We met so many awesome people. There was a great band playing. Next week we're going again. Get a crowd of people. Wow.
Yeah, they keep drawing it back, It's the same with all those tourist places. You get the older witches that will be in that area, and warlocks that sit there and just energy vampirism, suck that energy.
Very interesting. I'm just like, part of what happened at Baltimore as well was the 12-year-old rituals, right?
Correct.
In the swimming pool. So is that available for public display?
It is.
Public.
Yes.
And what are
it
they?
has been anointed now. So.
But how are they selling that? What are they saying happened there? Because from some of the pictures I've seen, you can like see nooses hanging, what looks like nooses on the side of the pool.
It's they put that off as, that stuff on the side of, they call it a pool area. And, what they'll say is that, those were just used for swimming, or that they were used for, there's times they'll tell people, oh, maybe there's a boat, they would bring a boat in there, but then you're like, how would a boat get in here? There's no way a boat could get in and out of this place. So they'll kind of pass it off as different things like that. But, what they call it is the pool, and that, it used to be filled up with water for the kids to swim in. And, then there was an additional pool in the area, which they claim they covered up years ago and made into the bowling alley. But below ground, where that bowling alley is, you have a secondary, more massive pool where they do ritual killings and stuff.
So when we're talking about the different rooms in the different houses that kind of have different creepiness going on in the living building, what else other than that disgusting depravity that you know of was taking place there? Did you have like breathing walls and poltergeisty things happening there as well?
What, Biltmore? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. That was, you'd get the high priest and priestesses gathering, particularly to do specific training. Everything that they do for the system, part of their job is that everything that they do before, their time is done, they have to train someone else to do that. Because their position is vital to the system continuing to go. So all that evil they have to train others to do. So you get different areas, particularly there, like, if we just broke down some of those areas, you have the kitchen area, was used to teach children how to process and, we'll just say, cook. That was part of the cannibalization, the cooking of the human meat. You have one of the rooms that they call for porcelain. They kind of call it the flower room or something, but they would make the porcelain masks for rituals there, have the kids learn how to do that. And then some of the things that were connected, we did an episode on the mannequin program and the doll programs. So some of that is taught there, how to do that. Then they have their whole, in the pool areas, they're going to teach some of the rituals and ceremonies that are continued throughout the generations, how to do those. Some of the different ceremonies and rituals that revolve around the contracts that they hold. So the pools also were used for the milk contracts and the renewal of those contracts. Then, you would have different areas like the taxidermy or the different stuff she did around that was going to be, would be taught there. And then you have like the apothecary area where she's going, she's going to teach how to do some of the poisons, different tinctures, potions. She was bigger in that. You had more, one of the other grand high priestesses would teach more of the procuring of the hormones that they would use for special tinctures, but Gloria also, did some of that as well. So then you get the procuring of the adrenochrome and the different hormones connected to the pineal gland that they would use for specialty tinctures that would be used for spiritual acuity for the higher level members. Or, the psychosis adrenochrome that they would use, like in the 12-year-old ritual that I've described, where, the adrenal mixture that they give causes, the individual to go into complete psychosis. And in that, they just, basically rip apart and shred and consume flesh. So that's all different things that they do there.
And you say it's been anointed now, right?
It is anointed now, yes. Every place that feet could walk was anointed. Yeah.
Do you think stuff like that is still going on there? I mean, stuff like...
I do. Yeah, I do.
But not in the pool, surely, because if that pool is open for public now,
they have contracts that were being held. The milk contracts were the last to be broken there. So, I don't think they'll be able to renew those now, but up until this last year, yes, they were still doing those.
So again, they're bringing people in there with this illusion of this beautiful place and all the lies they're telling. And they're still having, as you say, the milk contracts, which up until a year ago were in place. So
Yeah.
they were still, in essence, doing rituals in the pool.
I believe they were, yes.
And then just cleaning it up as only, I mean, now the normie will now not imagine that is even possible, but we've now learned from you how very possible that is, that within a few hours, that place, I suppose minutes even, it can look
Yes,
like magic.
Aquino used to say, if Mickey Mouse can do it, in the Disney little thing where he cleans with magic, if Mickey Mouse can do it, you can do it too. That's what he used to say. But yeah, they clean it with magic. It's not what we can imagine or think, how, because in our minds we think, how could they clean up things like that, have such, I mean, people can't even imagine the depth of this evil or how bad it really is. And then when you think about, well, how is it even possible? How can they clean up or hide or make it look within such a short time frame as though nothing has happened there? I mean, when you see it, everything is lickety split clean. I mean, it's absolutely immaculate. That should be a dead giveaway, that that there's stuff going on there. But the whole place is immaculate. You wouldn't think that anything could happen there, but it does. They do
Part
it
of
right
the
under people's
illusion.
noses. Yeah.
And it's all illusion. It's not even like they're just sneaky. They're just really creating illusion. It's just like they're spinning illusions around everyone. And then you go in there, you see what they want you to see, and not beyond a certain point. And then
the people coming, like the tourism is vital to the illusion. If all of a sudden nobody was allowed on the property, and they didn't have that energy coming in, we would see it quickly crumble, like more than regularly happens to a building. Like all of a sudden this beautiful grandeur building would very quickly lose its life and its splendor and would quickly die, because they have to have that whoosh to keep the illusion, to keep it alive. If they don't have that, it immediately like crumbles, and people are like, what the heck? Like, I was just through there last year. Like, why did it so quickly? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And it's because they're keeping it alive through the magic and the energy.
That was exactly what I wanted to ask you now. Actually, it's interesting because I got this picture of this, when you see these beautiful women that are actually very ugly witches when you look at the spirit, right? The illusion, and that, of course, is luring in with their sexual energy, all these guys or women, whatever it is. And then when you see the real, it's like, oh, right? And to me, this would be the same thing. It's like you see those old haunted houses in the middle of nowhere that used to be these beautiful castles.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, if those trees, because for me, you know what you're saying early on, it's like the grandfather tree is fed the blood, and that's no doubt that's the sacrifice. So the blood that that tree is fed is sacrificial blood. So for me, they're giving the tree that blood because they obviously want the tree. They want something from the tree, right? Power or protection or energy or whatever it is that they're acquiring, which then feeds the whole system. But if that tree or that system, no matter which area it's coming in from, is no longer being fed, it's going to crumble and die, and it's going to be annoyed. It's going to get angry first. It's going to get angry. So I would imagine it's going to be destructive first, because any addict gets angry. It's, you know, when you're trying to get someone off drugs, they get angry before they break that cycle of addiction. So
well, you usually see a pestilence of some sort. Like when you're saying those words, like what comes to mind from what I've seen is usually there's a death or a pestilence released on the land. Like you see those old trees, and all of a sudden, you know, they're like, oh, I had this this rare beetle infestation, right? But so you see this destruction from within, but it comes out and it goes out on the land, and then there has to be, a cleansing to stop that pestilence or destruction. The same thing with the water source, where all of a sudden the water's bitter or bad to drink, and then they have to do a cleansing. So I think that's how that kind of manifests, is it releases something negative or bad on the land to others, which is part of why, they're so faithful to those that are given charge over those things. They're so faithful with it because they don't want that devastation coming onto their family line, or destroying them or their family line.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pop up a few questions here. So this is still maybe coming from the beginning of the show as well, because I did star a few, and there's a lot of questions here. Okay, Pamela, I'm just going to put this one up here. I'm interested to know what you think about the Denver airport in relation to this. Jess, is there anything you can say about that?
Oh yeah, there's a lot underground there at the Denver airport. It's a bad area. You get a lot of the movement of children through that, as well as rituals, other things underground. So, that's an area that they use for sure.
Okay, thanks. Michelle, I don't think I got the first part of your question. Continuing my question, the Duke House in Newport, which was originally a Vanderbilt house, has a huge dollhouse in it. Creepy. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, you get a lot of her properties. They've preserved some of her doll houses and stuff like that. So I guess the scary thing in that, knowing that, I'll put it this way, it is not my belief that Gloria or Mary Lou Whitney ever built a dollhouse or fashioned a dollhouse just out of the fun or just as a hobby. Their dollhouses are intricately connected to their divination. So what do you have? Everything that they did, all their dollhouses are a replica of a real somebody underneath them, or somebody that they were targeting. So, high priest, high priestesses under the Eastern quadrants, or people that they classified as enemies. Christians that they were targeting. Somebody has a house similar, every one of their houses was somebody's house, right? Somebody lived there. Somebody was connected to those buildings that they're replicating. And if they're just empty, it means that they hadn't divined or discerned that the time for the divination had come forth. So they leave it open with that fear that, people who are trained to do that form of divination can cause the doom and destruction at any time. It really is a form of control, even of, a form of soul capture and torture, where those underneath them are connected. Is it, the question in that is it possible for them to sustain or take away life and connect life to those type of items, divination items,
Right.
where as long as the house is standing, even though it's empty, there, the person is alive. But the moment that house is destroyed, that person's life comes to an end. So, is that why they keep some of these vintage doll houses, is because you've got members of the system whose lives are connected to that through the divination and the sorcery. I think that's exactly why they do it, but I say let the
Sure.
kids at them. Bring all the doll houses out. Let the little boys have fun and and jump on
Right.
those suckers, ride them like horses. They're big, ride them like horses, destroy those houses. That's what I say we should let the children do.
Nothing quite like a child doing that, because a child will do it with a very different energy to an adult. That's for sure, right? Wow,
Right? Yeah.
it's interesting. Okay,
Judgment Day
random,
coming, that's what
hmm?
I'll say. I said I think it
Random.
should be a judgment day. Bring all the
Yeah,
stuff
no,
that
for
they had
sure.
and let the kids at it. But go ahead.
That's why I say totally. I mean, it's okay. My question is, did Jessie have any experiences in Monaco? Random question for you, Jess. Were
Yeah.
you ever gallivanting in Monaco?
It's plausible it's plausible that's an area with the training with the water gates. You get a lot of the older areas that have cisterns underneath and stuff, but so it's plausible, but I don't know. I haven't identified all the places of my training yet, because not all of them did we just go in your normal way above ground. We didn't always know where we were at. So some of that is still
Right.
forthcoming, but yeah,
I mean, and based on what you're saying, it wouldn't be surprising.
right?
Okay. Was Gloria Vanderbilt conscious of what she was doing, or do you think she did bad things under an altar?
Oh no, I'm pretty positive she was very conscious about what she was doing. Yeah.
Are there, on that note though, are there any of these, like, I often think about these celebrities, right? These little celebrity witches like Meghan Markle and maybe Beyonce and people like that who just look sweeter than sugar. I mean, Beyonce, when you watch her being interviewed, there is no one sweeter or nicer than Beyonce, really. She is so likable. She really,
Don't
really
buy it,
is.
Shanti. Don't be sucked in by her
That,
alluring energy.
but that's what I'm saying. It's so amazing that there's that, and even Oprah. I mean, look at Oprah. She's
Right?
had such a positive effect on so many hundreds and thousands of millions of people's lives. She really actually has on so many levels. But yet, one has to wonder, because I do know that there are certain people that have, like, obviously they get triggered and they get woken up at night and drive somewhere, do something, come back, and they have no idea they did it. That I do know. I mean, there's a guy here in South Africa as well, And I mean, he would wake up with grease on his hands or like full of whatever. And then what he started doing was he started taking his the kilometer reading on his car when he got home from work, and then the next morning. And then there were definitely times where he'd be putting up to 200-300 kilometers a night on his car. And he'd come back and he'd have blood on his hands or grease on his hands or stuff like that and he was part of the AWB, which is far right wing. He was groomed by the AWB, yeah, far right wing, in my days still, but a little bit younger than me. So I'm wondering though, you know, with these celebrities, do you think there are some of them that are unaware that they commit these atrocities? That they maybe wake up?
I think there are some that are unaware, you know, I do believe that, but I think there also are those that, you know, they're very aware that they're doing it. You know, I think that for some, it depends on the situation, the event, and what was all happening in regards to that. But you know, it's like when I was going through the training with the Grand High Priestesses, you know, it's like they know right where they left off for your training. You know, they know, they remember those things. You know, their job is to keep up, you know, their contracts, and to do that, you know, that is a quarterly, sometimes a daily, sometimes a weekly thing. You know, there's things that they have to do every single day or every single quarter to upkeep on those things. So, you know, it's not like they just have a switch, you know, that comes on and they're like, oh yeah, I gotta, you know, it's the day to renew that contract. No, their job is to make sure that that happens. So they, you know, they remember, they know that part. Whether there's times or things that they went through, you know, as children, maybe there are things that they don't remember that they've suppressed. That's possible too. But, you know, what I experienced wasn't an altar. That was, you know, that individual. That was their job. That was part of, you know, what they were raised up in the system to do. And, you know, they excelled at that. And in fact, they were perfect at it. You know, the highest form of accomplishment is, you know, that they're perfect. But
Perfect. Perfect in every way. I mean, it's so true. You know, they do strive for perfection, because when you look at these, whatever that might be, you know, it's like, who decided the perfect female body has to look the way that we are currently seeing it, you know, with the very curvy,
yeah.
right?
Well, not even that. Before that, you get almost like the, you know, the woman that is nothing pretty much, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Very straight figured, but
exactly. And then when you look at the gods as well, the gods of the sky, I mean, they're these huge, brutal men that stand with a 12-pack, never mind a 6-pack, right?
yeah.
And that, how does any man live up to that?
That, right? It's like
it's like that to me, just in the physical form, they've created this illusion that that's the image of the perfect woman and that's the image of the perfect man. So if we think about this, isn't all our, as women, all our vanities, right, is following that narrative? And the same with men. You know, you go to the gym, you work out, you take steroids, you kill yourself trying to look like Adonis.
Well, it puts people in that mode where there's always that trying to earn, you know, rather than earn the salvation, they're always trying to earn that place of godship. You know, they want to be a god, but then they realize no matter what they do, there comes the day where they realize they can never attain that. And then where
Right.
does it put them? It puts them in that place of submission, because when they realize that they cannot attain that, there has to be something called God
Right.
above them, right? So that's
Right.
where it gets into the spiritual attachments, where they have to worship whatever they are distinguishing or calling God, which is
So
going to
true.
lead them back to Lucifer and the principalities. That's who they're going to worship, you know.
And you're forever a minion to someone who you think in your mind has attained that, because as human beings, when that schism has been created in our way of thinking about ourselves, it erodes. And that
Yeah.
takes away our sense of self-worth, because you're constantly comparing yourself to another and constantly trying to achieve what someone else is achieving because they have done so well, and wow, that's what you've got to look up to. And it's
Yeah.
seldom spiritual. It's seldom someone who has achieved, and I'm not talking about a best-selling author or something. I'm talking about someone that truly has, on a spiritual level, is rich, enriched spiritually. You can feel those people. This has got nothing to do with that. It's all got to do with what I look like, what I have, how beautiful my dress is, how many diamond earrings I've got, that sort of thing. Very interesting how they created that goddess physical image that we're supposed to aspire to, right?
And none of us can ever attain to that. Why? Because that's not who we were made to be. That's not you. It's not me,
Wow, interesting. Anyway, another question here, Jess. Let's see this one here. Bethany, why was she preserving human bodies? And what was the purpose? Were these her victims?
Yeah, she would blend, it was a way to capture and control, but also to, keep those who were under her in the system in control. So she would blend her victims with, DNA, usually hair. Like I've talked about how she was notorious. I mean, you have no idea, these women, like literally they'd be pulling scissors out of nowhere. And you're like, where did they have that in that form-fitting dress, right? But
Yeah, exactly.
she would cut pieces of the hair off. And then would put those on the dolls that she would make, incorporating her victims and her people that she was under. Yeah. And then she would use those to create the scenes, the divination scenes. But
like voodoo dolls.
yes, but made out of not cloth. That was part of the taxidermy.
Yeah, made out of skin. So she would then, as you say, create the scene of either an accident or a heart attack or
right,
broken leg. If you're lucky, you might just get a snapped little finger.
right.
Oh, how evil can you get?
Yeah,
Man.
It's bad.
Interesting though. I want to just and this is a little bit gross, but I really, I'm trying to understand it. The skin that she's used, right? So let's say she took the skin of the victims. Would it be the same victim's hair that matched the skin? So would it be the same, or did it match?
No. She would match it with those that, like if she was training young high priestesses in sacrifices, right? They would sacrifice an infant, and then she would connect, those that were in the training, the sacrificer, to the victim in that by, making a voodoo type doll like thing with it,
So she connected it. It didn't have to be the person itself. Okay, I'm with you. She was able to connect them. Wow. That's insane. Sure.
Yeah. Like mine went to the first, I refused to participate in it, but the first victim that I witnessed murdered at her place, they drowned that infant, but that's the infant that then she connected with my hair that she stole, um, and made a doll for me and all of that. Um, so horrific stuff with that. But that doll went somewhere because I got a hold of that thing and as a child and removed her power and authority over that by, you know, taking that and doing something with it. So,
Well, thank God for that.
yeah.
Sure. Okay, I'm just seeing Voice of the Voiceless. There may be an altar there also. We were talking about Biltmore. But would Biltmore itself not be the altar?
Yeah, it's an altar,
like,
the mansion itself is an altar and you have a plethora, if there's at least one spirit connected to each of the gargoyles there, literally the whole place is, a mass. You've got a mass spiritual army there. I'll just say it that way, maybe. But yeah, you've got a lot of spirits connected to that altar.
Sure. Just a quick question also, which is, I think, just where we're at. To what extent does Jessie think that a lot of this information will be disclosed to the public? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's really my hope that it will, that everything about that will be made public. And, what is that going to include? Not just the rituals or ceremonies that took there, not just the mass amount of child deaths, but, they were one of the huge supply and chain for the system, for ceremonies and rituals, as well as, quadrantly things that they supplied their area with. So I'm hoping that a lot of that will come forward and that, may even be nuclear information. Um, you know,
Right.
their involvement with the Nazis and the nuclear weaponry, their supply of things for nuclear weaponry. That might be something that comes out too.
Sure. Duco. I can't imagine what they serve at those restaurants.
It's all organic and natural, Duco.
Jessie, you're giving me the creeds. I'm just so happy. Oh gosh. Oh no. I can't even think that I'm ever gonna eat again. Janice, do people that go there know they are cannibals? That's an interesting question because I would assume that most people don't, right?
Yeah,
but would there not be those that do, that have like a special code word in the restaurant that serves them?
I'm sure they do, but
okay, but mostly not, right? Okay.
Just don't choose the chef's choice, or the chef's recommendation. That usually would be how they would start conversations like that. What is the chef recommending? Anything more exotic than that, they would use different indicators to indicate.
Exotic.
Yeah, exotic would be a word they would use for specialty areas, to get what's special on the menu that isn't going to be listed. Or, there'd be different comments that they would make. Sometimes it would just be in conversation. Oh, I would like to speak to the chef. And then it would be like, oh, my grandfather was a, chef for such and such, and they would name some hosh posh name and then they would know. And the chef would be like, oh, let me, I'm going to make something special for you then. And they could even in that way coded, communicate without everybody knowing what they were doing, So it says, are these people actually possessed? Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just reading the comment there as well. So go for the
you know,
of spirits or parasite spirits.
Yeah, possession is it has to be described and defined differently for these individuals, because you know, on the lower end, like when we think of possession, we think of people that have these spirits that take control of their body, and you know, these people really are in a bad situation and need deliverance because they're, you know, being held captive by these spirits. But with the higher level people, and not, you know, not everybody, but you get special hosts, you know, so these people are not, you know, if I could put it a certain way, your top grand high priest or priestesses, you know, there is a control. That's part of learning the Solomonic magic. Solomon, you know, had control over the spirits that he contracted with, you know, and so in the same way, they're going to learn to have that control, and they're going to make alliances for the purposes of having power and authority. So, you know, it's not your typical possession type situation. You know, they very much, there's a control element that they have over these spirits that they know how to wield, and they're going to do what they need to do to protect themselves so that those spirits don't have a decapitating control over them. Yet at the same time, you know, there are moments like, you know, when the grand high priest or priestesses host ceremonies, there may be times that they have to do ritual cleansings of their bodies because they're going to have a spirit that they're hosting for a night for that ritual or event. Is that a form of possession? Absolutely. But it's not like your typical, you know, like there's certain things they're going to do, and then at the end of that night that spirit's going to leave and they're back to, you know, their normal self. So I don't know how to, I want to define that it's different than what we typically think of possession as, when we talk about that.
Sure. Another question from Harry. For what good does it to a man, woman, if he, she wins the whole world but loses he, she soul, her, she soul? And that's so
Yeah,
true.
that's a scripture.
Because you can win whatever, right?
Verse. Yeah.
I like that actually, because it's so true. And, you know, we need to remind ourselves of that every day. And sometimes we all lose ourselves in ridiculous nonsense from time to time. It's part of being human. But we just need to get ourselves back on track again, that's for sure. Heartlight had a question here, which I think is one that a lot of people ask. Why would God allow that, basically, for these souls to be trapped in that way? What's your take on that, Jessie? Because I think that's a spiritual...
I think it comes down to free will. You know, the
Right.
Lord gives free will. In that, each person, you know, is going to be held to account. How do, you know, we all have that choice. Are we going to do what's right, or are we going to choose evil? You know, so in that, the Lord is just, you know, when he brings those people forward for judgment, you know, at every point, at every act, every thought that they commit that is continually evil or wicked, every single moment they have a chance to turn away from that, yet they don't. You know, blessed are those that do, you know, those that love righteousness more than, you know, self pleasure or money. You know, blessed are you that choose to love righteousness more than, you know, pleasure of self love, you know, or love of self pleasure or money.
Yeah. And when we look at the kids and stuff, I think a big part of the question is about the children. And I know we've definitely covered that a few times, but I think we probably need to cover it a few more times as to, you know, when we talk about the kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, such
How
extent of evil, you know, with the acts of wickedness committed against children. Really, it's crimes against humanity, you know,
yeah.
is what they're guilty of. And
One day everyone will pay penance, that's for sure. Interesting. The pool area is very dark, and I would imagine, I just wanted to actually pop that up there, Jessie, because I think makes sense then when you're saying if these up until perhaps a year ago, right, they were
yeah.
still doing rituals there. She's that can't be fun-loving energy, that's for sure. Right. Okay, I think we'll make this the last question, Jess. Jessie, do you recall the Red Hallway at Baltimore? I know Timothy Homseth did take a picture of the Red Hallway. Any significance? By the way, friends, literally felt sick there, yeah. Any
Yeah,
comment
that's
on?
upstairs. That's in the upstairs corridors and stuff. And, you know, those are just upper corridors in the house. But a lot of things that happen up in those areas, the trafficking, the special rooms set apart or named after certain individuals. In fact, you have a room dedicated to Madonna up there, who was one of the high priestesses under Gloria Vanderbilt. You know, so
Do you think Madonna is still with us, or do you think she's actually exited? Because this new
I
Madonna,
don't know if she's actually exited or not, but the individual that is posing as Madonna, or the several individuals posing as her, no, those are
yeah,
not her.
that's definitely not her. I mean, good grief. How can people
Yeah,
even think that's her? I
I
mean,
know
really.
it's totally not her, but I want to there's one more question I do want to answer. Somebody's asking, how were you able to escape that system?
Mm,
You know, that truly was a divine act of God. You know, literally, I was at a family funeral, and, you know, up until that point, um, you know, there were just so many contracts that I was bound under in that system. Yet, in a moment, like my deliverance happened in a moment, where literally I turned around from the burial site of our family member, and the Lord said to me, I've released you from them. And immediately it was like a wedge came down between me and them. And that was at age 10. And that was the moment the Lord delivered me out of that. And then later, the authority to bring forward my testimony and to bring everything public, um, that came later in 2018 when the Lord said, you know, take your position. Because up until that point, I had, you know, renounced, I had rejected, I had refused, I had done everything. And I said, Lord, what else do I need to do to be rid of this? And the Lord said, take your position. And my first thought was like, what? Are you crazy? And the Lord gave a verse. He said, until all things are laid subject under my feet. And at that moment, I understood what he was saying. And I took that position and I laid everything down at the Lord's feet. And then from that, that gave the authority to divorce myself and everything that I had authority over in the system through that position, you know, was divorced from the enemy in the system and laid at Jesus's feet. And that then, you know, was part of the authority that then I was able to come forward with, as well as other people are able to come forward with, exposing the system for what it is, how it works and operates. So the Lord is powerful in that and so good. You know, all of that was really the fulfillment of a promise. When I was 5 years old, um, you know, the Lord asked me, you know, what did I want? And I said, Lord, I want them all to come out. And so all of that, you know, became the fulfillment of the Lord beginning to work to bring people out of that system. you know.
Well, that's why I put you there to begin with. I have no doubt about
Right.
that. No one better than you. And then I think it's just an interesting,
About that. But hey,
slightly off the topic question here about the school bus story with Virginia Joffrey. This is the Epstein victim. Did you read that? Have you heard about that?
I hadn't. I had seen some pictures, I think, of
Yeah.
her going up online, but I didn't get to see everything with that or know what it was all in regard to.
Well, basically, a couple of days ago, I think a week or more ago, she was hit by an out-of-control bus doing 100, was it 100 miles or 100 kilometers in a 40 zone or something? I don't know if it's miles or kilometers. That's 100 miles is a very fast
That's
bus.
fast for a school bus, right? Was it a school
Yeah.
bus or like what type of bus?
It didn't say it from what I read. And it just said, and I actually read this, I think it was a Mail and Guardian, so it's quite a reliable source. And that, yeah, she was now in hospital with renal failure and apparently had a few days to live. Now, I don't know, that again, I mean, I'm sure that's the official story, but I don't know. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think that there's definitely a targeting of any whistleblower that comes forward with information, about how the system operates,
Right.
or major players in the system operate. So I think you get a lot of the targeting of those who have been victims who come out to speak about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I really, I hope this comes to an end now because that whistleblowers are targeted because I really pray that with DJT in the driving seat, these atrocities will be addressed and dealt with in most swift way possible, whatever that might be, because honestly, this can't carry on. This whole fear-mongering thing cannot carry on, where people who are speaking up for the good are constantly being taken out.
Right.
Too much now. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to know, there was a question earlier on, and that'll be my final one to you. Do you think that Anderson Cooper was aware, again, of his mother's shenanigans? Because it's clear that he obviously was part of that as well. You must have known him then, did you? Did you know Anderson Cooper when you were a child?
I'll just put, I believe he fully was involved in those things, in the shenanigans with his mother and others in their circle groups. Yep. So yes, I believe he was fully aware.
I'm worried about that baby him and his partner adopted. How's that baby? Does anyone know about how Anderson Cooper's baby is? I hope it's fine. I always get freaked out.
Probably in that
when
with their positions, you're dealing with a child that they're selecting as a hierarchy child, so that's probably the good news in that, is that at least the child's a hierarchy child, but we know that the hierarchy children are also horrifically abused, and that's part of how they continue the wickedness, is through that forced abuse and training. The rearing up of a child in the way it should go is what they'll call it, but yeah.
I remember when I saw pictures when they just adopted that baby, and you kind of know what that poor child's in for. Horrible. Anyway, I think we're going to call it for a day for today. You've been with us for way over 2 hours now, and I very much appreciate you for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And yes, and we will have the membership channel, the membership show with Jessie on Tuesday. Just watch the community board, and we will let you know. And then Tuesday as well, double trouble with Jessie then,
Yes.
as well as the
Wednesday.
yes. So it'll be Tuesday double and Wednesday double. But then we don't see you for 3 weeks, so you've made up for lost time. But that's okay.
I'll make it up ahead of time. How about that?
You're allowed to have a little holiday from us from time to time. You really are.
Right.
And then you're going to come up.
That.
Yeah, Jess, of course. How could I not? I don't think there was anything else I needed to ask you. I made a few notes here. But yeah, I think, guys, so we'll let you know what the topic for membership is going to be on Tuesday. But again, I want to just say to you, as well, we're going to be doing, when Jessie gets back, as we will do a more in-depth Q&A as well. I know we haven't had one for a while. Today, obviously, we wanted to try and do that. But of course, with the living house built more, I think that took up a lot of living oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just got to clear that. Wow. Anyway, Jessie, thank you. Would you like to, is there anything you want to just close off with? Any announcements you want to make just in closing? Or
yeah, I encourage people to visit my website, kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. April 12th, we've got the first international land decode, where we're going to get into the decoding the quadrant crest. So I encourage everybody to sign up for that. Also, you can sign up there for the next coaching for the land assignments 1 through 4, coming up in May there. So I encourage you guys to check those out and sign up for those. Those are really helpful, especially if you want to know, what can I do in my area? How can I, be aware of what's going on there? What do I look for? What brotherhood groups are in my area? That's where you'll learn all that information, how to, figure that out. So it's a huge resource. The coachings for the land assignments really are a vast resource to everyone. So they're always free, and I encourage you to take as many as you can, even though the framework's the same for all of them. Every single one is different because we get different people. We look at different sigils that we decode. So utilize those resources. You also, another great resource on my website is under the conversation tabs. Under there, we have the majority of the shows, videos that I've done, including the ones here on Aquarius Rising and Solutions with Shanti. So you can access those episodes, and we encourage you to keep coming back for more, because we've got a lot more to keep going.
Indeed. I think I remember 2 years ago you said
we're not even below the surface yet.
Yeah, we've only just started scratching, and now, wow, and now we're just getting into layer 1. I don't even want to think what might be beneath us. I actually do. I think it'll be super interesting.
Yeah, anyway. It would be a deep dive for sure, but one that probably will, honest truth, we probably will never get to the bottom, because it's just too, I don't think people can really handle that. That's the truth of it. We weren't made to know such depths of evil.
I think, you know what, I want to say I do agree with you, but also by the same time, I'm not sure that I really do, because you said something that made a lot of sense to me quite a while ago when we started the shows. There was a particular little girl that you were forced to watch because you refused to unalive her. So it was a particularly gruesome unaliving you had to watch. And it was like, you didn't take your eyes off her. It's like her pain was your pain. You
That
were
was Grace.
completely
Yeah.
empathetic.
I've named her Grace, and the Lord
Right.
had said to me, don't turn your eyes away from your own flesh and blood. And,
Exactly.
you know, many of us
I
survivors
think,
have become the voices of those victims, you know, and bringing their
and I
stories out.
think, and I think part of this, no matter how grotesque, we do need to know, not for sensationalism,
Right.
although I think it might be for some people, but really just to be witness to what has gone down
Yeah.
and to be able to, I don't know, stand in unity with some of the atrocities that have been committed against our own flesh and blood.
Yeah.
So, but
Exactly.
if,
You know, that's why we keep bringing it forward and stuff. But I think at the same time, though, you know, it was actually her story where when I was writing that in affidavit, a very powerful moment for me was to be able to say, you know, I've given enough in this affidavit. You know, I've shown enough of these people's evil. And there was a freedom in being able to say, you know, for my own health, for my own, you know, choice, my own free will, I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to say more on some of those things, you know, like I'm going to just let it be. I'm going to leave those things buried with the Lord. So, you know,
yeah,
it's a mix, but I think, you know, there's still, I think we could go forever and never get to, you know, that place of the bottom. I'll just put it that way. There's that much more where we never have to worry about running out of content, Shanti. So
I don't think we ever will run out of
crazy as it
content.
sounds, you know, but
Yeah.
that's the truth. We never have to
And
worry about running out of
we've been
content.
we've been going for 4.5 years to 1 to 2 shows a week, and we've not run out of content. In fact, the content gets juicier.
Right.
So,
Stay
but I
tuned. We've
don't
got lots more. So
exactly so much more. Anyway, Jess, would you like to pray for us, please?
yeah. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this time, this conversation. Lord, we just ask that as everybody leaves today from the show, we ask that you would just put your peace over us, that you would guard our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Lord, we know that some of these things are so difficult to hear. Some of them are difficult to receive. And above all, many of us leave thinking, what can I do to stop, to prevent, to expose? Lord, show us what we can do. And we thank you that some of the greatest things that we can do is just sharing the information, keeping the stories, the voices alive. Lord, I thank you for that. And I thank you for all that show their support in doing so. Um, I ask that you would strengthen, that you would encourage, that you would give us a new boldness this year as we continue to expose and bring this information forward. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, thank you,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Wow, these are never pleasant topics, as we know, but so good to hear them and so good to have experts like the beautiful Jessie that exposes this stuff. So everybody, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And I had a lot of people, by the way, say that they aren't getting notifications. But if you go to the bell, press on the bell and press all and not personalize, because that's why you're not receiving notifications. And just share this content, you know, it keeps our algorithms up as well. And Solutions doesn't have a membership channel, but Aquarius Rising Africa does. So if you want to join our membership channel, please pop over to Aquarius Rising Africa and or join our Patreon. That all the links in the description area below. So everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you back tomorrow night with Dr. Dennis Carroll. and we'll be having another super interesting topic as only Dr. Dennis can deliver. He's awesome. So join us for that. And then, yes, lots of other things happening for the rest of the week. It's a busy, busy week for me, but I like hanging out with you all. So I hope you like hanging out with me too. And if you don't, that's just tragic for you. Bye.